But I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
I don't know if it was a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1,
self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's going on, guys? It is a Tuesday night, which is one of the nights we get together and talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific. What are those things, you may wonder? Well, there's way too much, so I'm going to have to sum up. Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. What is going on? All right, look, this world gets crazier and crazier by the day, I tell you what. Again, watching news cycles, you got to wonder, right? You got to wonder, like I was saying last night regarding all the rest of that mumbo-jumbo we were talking about last night. I forgot what it was, because if I think about that, I'm going to forget what I was going to talk about tonight. But the news cycles just seem to bring about more madness every single day. And we did the news show yesterday at 3 p.m. Pacific on Twitch, like we always do. And there's just so many stories that just ripped out over the weekend, including that the stuff with the sentient AI. That's what we were talking about yesterday, and how sort of that cascades into all these other serious ramifications of what the future may actually look like. Okay, but regarding that, that's just one rabbit hole, and we were talking about that last night in terms of a particular rabbit hole that kind of spun off into 3 or 4 or 5. But it's not the only one. There's so many things out there that we're just not ahead of. These things, technology is moving so fast that we have a hard time just kind of keeping up. Just a discussion in terms of these things and maybe what this dystopian future actually holds in store for us. But, right, the next thing actually turns into, what about our legislation, right? I mean, our Congress at an all-time low approval rating of like 9% or whatever the hell it is, right? I mean, deservedly so. They don't know they're ass from a hole in the ground, these people. And all they care about is, right, dealing out money to their friends. There's my political take. There's my political hot take. But it's pretty obvious if you pay close enough attention that they really don't care about the average person. But this is not about politics. That's just my hot take. The reason I bring up Congress and how miserable and ineffective they are about actually doing anything that's meaningful is because there's so many things that are happening technology-wise that really need to be addressed. Again, we've talked about antitrust stuff with these tech platforms just running away with it. And I'm not saying I agree with the antitrust idea of just break them all up into tiny companies and, sort of protect them that way. It's complicated, per usual, right? Conversations are complicated. But I think it needs to be looked at, of course, and not just put somebody on the antitrust board that's been a, major player in the corporations they're trying to, quote, regulate, or whatever the hell that means, Anyway, whatever. All that aside, the point of that and me bringing it up is because we have this bizarre thing happening where science and the, let's say, ability of not just, let's say, scientific labs or the scientists themselves are able to do these things. You're able to order science kits on the internet where you can do your own, let's say, what do they call that? When you get a centrifuge and you spin your blood and get all the white cells out of it, the white blood cells for like a super healing potion, right? Like you can buy that stuff on the internet now and do that stuff yourself, it's not recommended and I'm not selling that stuff and I'm not saying you should go do this at all, but I'm saying that you actually could, right? And that's the terrifying part is as these technologies kind of get more and more, let's say, easy easy to get in your hands, then these things become easier and easier to exploit, okay? And we're talking about new technologies. And in terms of just regular people exploiting technology, that's one thing. But what about when you get state actors or, actual like state-sponsored or funded laboratories actually doing this stuff with proper equipment and proper scientists and all the rest, right? And of course, they're doing this, in a deep underground base and something like that, right? I don't know, like it starts to get creepy. And we're talking about DNA tonight. And so not just DNA, but what about the custody of your DNA? Okay. And so that's my point here, meaning that, and I know we've talked about this in the past on the after show chat a little bit. Axel Steele, if you're out there, what's up, buddy? We were talking about this in terms of, once you discard DNA, it's not yours anymore, right? If you're, let's say eating some ice cream and, licking all over the spoon and whatnot and drooling all over the cup, and you throw that away, well, your DNA is all over that. But the second you throw it away, it's not yours anymore because it's been discarded, okay? But what happens is that means that anybody could pick it up and, by the way, boom, there's your DNA, right? Now, what happens with that is the next step of, right? What could happen with that is, again, as part of drinking the maybe juice and doing what we do here. If you're new to Troubled Minds, we do the thing where we call it drinking the maybe juice, okay? Aristotle called it is the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it. We just call it drinking the maybe juice because, well, why not? And that's what we do. So if you discard your DNA, all right, do you think it's fair and fine for somebody else to just be able to, let's say, grab that DNA out of your ice cream cup and go create a clone of you? Do you think that's cool? Is that kosher? Is that something we should be fine with? Or is that something that should probably be looked at as far as legislation goes to at least make these things illegal and punishable by, well, the law? Well, even though, if you're paying attention, you've noticed that the law has been compromised in many ways because they politicize it. But I digress. I'm just saying, right? In a true world where justice actually mattered, well, I think that this needs to be looked at. So there we go. That's where we're starting tonight. Again, so the idea tonight is this. If you toss your DNA in the garbage, again, chopsticks, a spoon, a plastic spoon, whatever, right? I don't know, like whatever it happens to be, right? Let's say a Q-tip, right? Let's say anything like this, an old toothbrush, whatever, right? Like these things typically go into landfills or recycling centers or whatever, right? They're cast aside. Well, but these things are not just objects. They actually have your DNA on them, okay? And so it's a fascinating concept and a fascinating thing to think about in regard to who that DNA now belongs to. Basically, look, your DNA is your source code. It's literally what makes you yourself on a genetic level, right? On the most basic level, the building blocks of life, right? That idea. But is it legitimate that somebody else could just pick it up and now it's theirs? And now, because it's theirs, ownership transfers and they can do whatever the hell they want with it. You think that's kosher? Is that okay? That's where we start tonight, all right? But as we get going on this, you guys know the drill. This is a conversation. This is just not me rambling, though I can ramble like crazy. It's a conversation between myself and you. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as we stream on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. And of course, we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. You can reach us at 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. I think the website's okay. It locked me out and said, I thought I was a robot. On my own damn website, it's like, oh, you've been locked out and we think you're a robot. Yeah, because I accessed my website, you jackass robot. Anyway, this is a perfect example of the world we live in. Troubledminds.org, click the Discord link. Discord is a chat client. It's a voice client. It's completely free. And if you have an internet connection, of course, and you can use it to communicate with people, meet new folks, share ideas, share links and pictures and all the rest of it, videos and whatnot. And yeah, come do it. Come say hi. Come meet the amazing people that make Troubled Minds go. There we go. Okay. Look, let's see where we at. I think that's good. Regarding Fringe FM. Fringe FM is digital radio, all right? So we are broadcasting on the Fringe FM, and you can also join that Discord, watch in the chat in all the places, including that Discord as well. You can join that at fringe.fm/chat, and the easiest way to listen to Troubled Minds is by downloading the Fringe app. You can find that on Apple or Android App Store, and it's completely free, and you just smash the play button at precisely 7 p.m. Pacific, and Monday through Thursday, and you get me. You get Troubled Minds, you get us, you get these conversations, and you get, weird technology as part of that. Okay, so there it is. All right. Now look, you guys have seen this if you watch the news show, but check this out. This gets super absolutely wild. All right, we've got this article. This is from futurism.com, and this is where we're at. This is the weirdness of today. Professor warns that creeps might start stealing DNA from celebrities for dark purposes. Quote, imagine being able to produce a child with your favorite movie star using the DNA from a strand of hair or flake of skin. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Are we live in all the places? Looks like we're okay. We're okay. Yep, there we go. All right. What's up, guys? Okay. All right. Just making sure we're good. Okay, look. Straight from the article. The notoriously murky waters of DNA ethics are about to get even murkier. In an essay for The Conversation, law professors from Georgia State University and the University of Maryland argue that genetic paparazzi could soon be coming after the DNA of public figures, including celebrities and politicians. That could throw the legal system into chaos, they argue, which could be bad news not only for celebrities, but for the general public as well. Between recent innovations in both genetics and reproduction, blurry public interest laws, and the lack of any firm precedent, courts are ill-equipped to deal with the potentially civilization-shifting, not to mention extremely creepy, consequences of celebrity DNA theft. For one, the buying and selling of alleged celebrity mementos is nothing new. From Britney Spears' gum to Justin Timberlake's half-eaten French toast showing up on eBay. Some of these items, if they're actually legit, could possibly contain viable genetic material. While those DNA samples may have been of little use to poachers in years past, genetic technologies have come a long way ever since. Scientists announced they had sequenced the entire human genome in 2003. And with those breakthroughs come new possibilities for seriously disturbing behavior. All right. And it gets into some of that in this article. Well, that's fine and well because, well, we're going to talk about this tonight. Now, the thing is regarding creepy. All right. Like I said, there's a few questions tonight as we start. Okay. Number one, the first question is this. If you discard your DNA, is it fair for it then to become the property of whoever walks by and picks it up? That's the first question. Do you think that this actually needs to be revisited in Congress and, of course, the court system, or is this fine? It's like, hey, you threw your Chinese food away and somebody pulls your chopsticks, and bam, they've got a genetic copy of you. You think that's okay? I don't think that's okay. It's going to happen, okay? And weird stuff is going to happen as a result of this, including or let's say up to and including full-on cloning of people, right? And who knows when that's going to be a viable thing? Who knows if it's already happening in underground labs now? Who knows? That's the thing, right? How far along have we come in that technological space? Okay, so that's the first question. Do you think it's acceptable if you throw away your DNA since it's discarded and somebody picks it up? Now it's 100% legally theirs to do whatever they see fit. Is that okay? That's the first question tonight. Okay, the next question. All right, the next question is, how deep do you think this rabbit hole goes? Meaning, what kind of nefarious things could you do with plucked DNA or discarded DNA from wherever the DNA happens, right? What kind of things, how deep does this go? All right. And of course, the next question is, do you think this is fine? This is fine, right? This is fine. This is totally fine. This is the way the world is going. All right. Back to George Orwell a little bit, but I don't know. Okay. So to me, clearly this disturbs me, because if it didn't, I wouldn't be talking about it. And again, you know me, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I'm not here trying to tell you the end is nigh and there's going to be clones of you walking around in your neighborhood. I'm not trying to say that. But what I am trying to say is it definitely is an interesting concept as technology advances, right? We're told there's no such thing as a human, let's say, synthetic womb, okay? We're told that you can't do that. You have to actually, test tube baby, then you actually have to put them in an actual, real, like, living womb, okay? That's what we're told. That's what we're told in this day and age. And, well, okay, I'm sure that's fine, right? I'm sure that's fine. I'm sure they've never, in all these years, tried to actually perfect a synthetic womb, because that would just be weird, right? Or maybe they have and nobody's telling us, because of course the first thing you would do is try and create what, the super soldier, because of course that's what you would do, right? So I mean, okay, look, and this is the whole point of this. This is the whole point of these conversations is to say that what happens next? All right, what happens next with this? And if you look at this, there are some nefarious things already happening with DNA. Okay, and we're not just talking about what's up. Tim in the chat there says designer babies. This goes beyond that. We're talking about, like, literally, you could probably, let's say, fertilize an egg with, George Clooney's DNA if you just found his chopsticks from his Chinese food. You see what I'm saying? Like, things start to get super weird with the level of technology that is becoming fast and furiously more available. And that, to me, is disturbing. Is disturbing because, again, back to the idea of your own source code being your genetics. And, if you discard it, it's somebody else's, right? It's totally somebody else's now. No, I don't know about that. I think there needs to be some lines drawn. And so that becomes the next question. What do you guys think the lines are that should be drawn regarding discarded DNA and somebody else taking full ownership of it because they just picked it up out of a trash can? Ah, yes. Ah, yes. So I don't know. That's where my mind's at tonight. And we're going to get to, of course, the faceless God of many faces, because you know me. I don't like to just keep this conversation in terms of just one linear thing, because that's awfully boring. We're going to talk about some other things as well, including creating faces from DNA. Yeah, there's somebody already doing this, by the way. We'll get to that as we go. But I don't know. There's Byte Labs, right? Remember that? Yeah, what's up, Derek the Night Stalker out there? Yeah, and so this is the weirdness, right? So not just, remember they were creating that whole Byte Labs thing with, they were creating supposedly celebrity meat, celebrity sausage and things like this, right? From celebrity DNA. So you could actually order, I don't know, like Justin Bieber cuts or so, you know what I mean? Something really grotesque like this. But I think that was a parody. I don't think that's real. Like I said, I checked, I did some digging, and I was, let's say, satisfied that this wasn't actually happening. I think it was a parody website, and it was just more of an idea, sort of like Troubled Minds is, talking about these things as maybe they haven't happened yet, but at least putting it in terms of, well, what if they do happen, and what is the next step, right? So Byte Labs, we could throw that into the conversation as well, if you guys remember that. They said they were endorsed by celebrities, getting celebrity DNA and creating food stuff from the DNA of celebrities, right? Which, of course, is really gross. But okay, so There we go. All right. So where does this lead? Where does this head? And how far along do you think the technology is regarding cloning, regarding what happens when you get this DNA? Could you really just have a baby with George Clooney because you grabbed his chopsticks from his Chinese food, right? And that's the type of stuff that gets really terrifying when you start to think about how DNA and the technology regarding and surrounding the actual source code of human beings really has come in the last 20 years. So again, very much like last night, we talked about the idea of sentient machines, okay, sentient AI. And, 20 years ago, like I said, it was laughable. It was like, yeah, come on, we're so far away from that, right? But I don't know. 20 years from now, it may not be so laughable because of that, in light of the news from yesterday that we talked about in length on that show. But I think the same thing goes for DNA, right? You could probably say 20 years ago, oh, come on, Mike, you're being paranoid. You threw away your ice cream and nobody's going to make a clone of Michael Strange. Get out of here. Don't be stupid. Okay, that's fine, right? That's fine. That's fine. I get it. Yeah, probably. What about 20 years from now? And so we're in this really weird space of technology, the technology space of these things that literally 20 years ago were science fiction. And now suddenly, 20 years from now, may be science reality. And that's part of the problem, right? So I don't know. So that's where we start tonight. And there you go. How about bring back John Lennon or Bob Marley? There you go, says Daryl. That'd be super creepy, by the way. super, super creepy. But I mean, that's the thing. So let's talk about it. That's the idea. So we're going to get to the Faceless God. And of course, if you guys are Game of Thrones fans, you'll love this one. And I say this to you tonight. Valar Morghulis, and we'll get to exactly what that means and why we're talking about the Faceless God or the God of Many Faces, and of course how this fits with the DNA and DNA structures. So back to the questions. So the first question is, if you discard your DNA, do you think it should be legal for somebody to just pick it up and assume full ownership, to do with as they please? Or do you think this needs to be revisited? First question. Second question is, how deep does this rabbit hole go? How nefarious do you think people could and will be regarding discarded DNA? For instance, right, you don't have to follow George Clooney around and have him wait for him to drop his Chinese food in the garbage, right? That many places will tell you where George Clooney lives. So, if you can get into those places, and I'm not suggesting anybody do this, so please don't do this, okay? I'm saying that, right? It's not that hard to find out where a lot of these celebrities hang out or where they live and things like this. Don't do this. I'm saying for the weirdos out there, the stalkers and whatnot, the people that are thinking about doing this, don't do this, okay? All the normal people too, don't do this, okay? Nobody do this. But I'm saying if somebody was very, very, let's say, impressed enough to do this, that it could be done. Okay, but then, all right, we'll leave it at that. Don't do it. Don't even think of it. But the thing is, right, so how deep does that go, and what can you do with it? Could you actually have a baby with George Clooney, or with Brad Pitt, or with Angelina Jolie, or, right, all the way down the line? Or whatever celebrity impresses you, could you be like, boom, there you go. My new baby is going to have half the genetics of a movie star, right? Yeah, Bieber meat, right? What's up, Tim? Yeah, okay, so that's where we go. But then number 3, how close do you think this is to happening? And that's what's going on. There's some really, really you guys in the damn chat. I see you guys out there with your dirty comments. All right, look. So that's what's going on tonight. We're talking about this idea of discarded DNA. And of course, not just whether it should be, let's say, transferable as it is now. When you discard it, somebody else can pick it up and it's fine. It's legally theirs now to do whatever they please with it, as long as that falls within the realm of legality, if you know what I'm saying. So, well, it's a dark thing. It's a dark thing to think about. And we're going to get into some cases. There's actually a court case actually happening where somebody has stolen somebody else's DNA and they're trying to frame them for something using their DNA. You see, there are very, very nefarious actors out there, characters that would do these things because they can, because they have money, because they can pay for these things to happen. And we're going to get into all that tonight. Do you want to be part of the show? I'd love to hear. Damn it, you guys. Beyonce cupcakes. We got, geez. Okay. All right. You guys are out of control tonight because, well, that's the way it goes. This is troubled minds. But okay, look, that's what's on my mind. We're talking about the DNA paparazzi. Right? What about, we know the regular paparazzi follows celebrities around trying to get pictures of them. But what about when that transitions to following celebrities around, trying to get DNA samples to maybe sell on eBay or something, or to do something quite a bit more nefarious with that. What are your thoughts? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More the Faceless God of Many Faces and the DNA Paparazzi when we return. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're taking your phone calls as we discuss this idea of discarded DNA and the DNA paparazzi. What exactly does that mean? We'll get into that. It's a little bit of a terrifying proposition, but hey, as technology develops and changes, things do become, let's say at the very least, interesting. So what are your thoughts? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. Let's check to make sure we got no calls. I think we got some calls. Let's do it. Let's go to Matt in Colorado. What's up, my friend? Thanks for being patient. Welcome to Troubled Minds. Are you there? Test 1, 2.
Yeah, test Alpha Bravo Charlie. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Go right ahead, Matt. How are you?
Oh, excellent. I'm doing well, thank you. I always like to try and address your questions best I can. And about discarding the DNA and if somebody picks them up. And your second question, of course, related, is that then still yours? Can it become nefarious, etc.? And I don't know. It was a long time ago. I went to school, and I went to public school, so I'm not sure how good my education was, right? But I remember civics class and reading the Constitution, and if memory serves properly, the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution says that, which is the Bill of Rights, says that you have the right to be secure in your person and your property. Okay, so I'm wondering and assuming that your DNA is your person. That's what you're made of, right, in a physical sense. So your person is your body. Your DNA is part of that body. I don't care if you discard it or not. It's you. It's yours. You have a right to be secure in that. So legally speaking, and we could get into legislatively speaking, if you have a right to be secure in your person and property, that means you have a right to be secure in your DNA. I think it's constitutionally wrong, invalid, illegal, against the Constitution to, steal somebody's DNA. That's part of you. That's part of what makes you up. I think if I was George Clooney and somebody rooted through my garbage can, got my DNA, then took it to a lab and replicated it, which it replicates. It only takes about 40 minutes for a DNA to fully replicate, and made 1,000 copies of me and was selling it on the internet to, impregnate women, make monster meat bologna sandwiches out of me, right?
Right.
I would totally sue them. I would sue them, and I would take it to court, and I would take it to the Supreme Court. And this may be where this kind of stuff ends up, is court challenges. And I think they have a solid foundation in terms of the Constitution of saying, hey, this is my person. This is my property. So, no, you can't take it, and you can't steal it.
Okay,
and,
so that's actually incorrect, by the way. So maybe if you took it all the way to the Supreme Court, that might be a different thing. But as far as I'm aware, the case law currently has said that once you throw away DNA, it is no longer yours, which means that whoever comes by and picks it up, it becomes theirs. Okay, and literally that's been tried in court cases, and it's held up based on precedent currently. As far as I'm aware, it hasn't pushed to the Supreme Court as of yet. But these are the conversations we need to have, because this is the type of stuff that is very, very, very problematic. Okay, for obvious reasons. So there, you are correct in saying the Fourth Amendment and all the rest of this, the right to privacy, meaning in your person and your papers. Well, if your person is your DNA and is an extension of you in your source code, then I would expect if it went to the Supreme Court and they upheld the Fourth Amendment in that regard, that no, that DNA does not legally transfer, and to even pick that up would be, let's say, against the law, right? Against the law of the land currently in the United States that we live in. But it's not true. The courts have determined, currently, lower courts, of course, that if you do pick it up, it becomes yours. All right. And cops have been doing this. Infamously, you may have heard this one. They caught the Golden State Killer. Based on DNA that they took out of his trash can, okay? And they matched this to a DNA profile that his great-great-niece or something had uploaded, and wouldn't you know, they found the guy. Or, right, it was that whole, they verified it based on that information. So no, the cops are using this against us, and that's part of what becomes problematic, right?
Right. And you know, these are fascinating issues. They're becoming bigger issues. And yeah, you know, like you said, that might be the, you know, current things that have been brought up and held up by precedent, but that can always come back to, you know, sometimes people have to challenge them. They have to move them up to a whole higher court. They have to re-challenge them and move them up. And maybe that's what needs to happen with this stuff. And, you know, not to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole, but, you know, what about, you know, all the swabs that they do for COVID testing or things like this that, I mean, obviously you're getting people's DNA because, you know, when they do DNA samples, a lot of times they'll swab the inside of the cheek, right, and get the cells off of your mouth and inside of a cheek. Well, they stick these swabs way up your nose. So I'm not saying they're doing that. They could be. I don't know. It's interesting with DNA research. They've discovered that 73% of your DNA was actually evolved in the last 5,000 to 10,000 years. And they did a massive number of people to be able to determine this because it was only like 0.1% of people that had certain DNA types, you know, leading back to Africa and also European and these different offshoots. And the question is, where'd they get all that DNA data? You know, and I wondered before about people sending in for these test kits for my ancestry, right? And so you swab your DNA and you send it off to the lab like, oh, I want to find out my heritage. And I was just like, hey, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Are you people crazy? You're just like handing over your DNA. You don't think they're going to store that in a computer? You don't think they're going to use that for whatever purposes? I mean, I almost wondered if that's the whole reason they have that business or company, almost like it's a front or a honeypot to just collect people's DNA, right?
Yeah, well, I hope that's not the case. I mean, that would be a very, very ugly look for a lot of reasons. So let's not get into that stuff in particular, because I think it's probably a little more safe for us to not get sued by the blood banks of the world or whatever. But
I probably shouldn't have brought up their name, but yeah. And then the question of the artificial womb and how far does this go and where's it leading and where are we at in 20 years? And yeah, like you were saying, they might already have that. If they don't, I'm pretty sure they're probably working on it. And then it's not like artificial insemination where you need a sperm cell and a womb and doing things more on a test tube or an artificial womb. And then, that's where stuff starts getting a little more out of control and perhaps nefarious whether it's the super soldiers or, people wanting celebrity babies or whatever, right?
Yeah, and that's where things get really, really gross, because you can start to do that type of stuff, or in some cases, I said this way, way, way back in the very first couple months of Troubled Minds, we were talking about the idea of your DNA as source code, as your human source code, right? And I said way back then, it wouldn't be ridiculous to get some sort of discarded DNA, take it into a lab and grow more of it and just go throw it all over a crime scene. And then you're screwed, right? It doesn't matter where you were or how many eyewitnesses, because the Church of Science has deemed you there and guilty, right? And this is where this type of thing becomes very, very, very dangerous, because we're talking about state actors involved with this type of stuff. We're talking about, right, rogue state actors in some cases. We're talking about, let's say, breakaway civilizations with technology to do this type of stuff. So, in a wide world where anything is possible, this stuff becomes very, very, very scary very fast when you start thinking in those terms. So I don't want to accuse anybody of doing this, but it is a very real possibility that you could get DNA replicated in a lab, just in terms of small specimens to just litter all over a crime scene. Like in the old days, they used to say that cops used to bust people with just planting drugs, right? It would be the exact same thing, except planting DNA on a crime scene, right? Same exact thing. So I mean, the morality of people is always, let's say, suspect, because, people are going to people. But yeah, go ahead. What else you got, my friend?
Well, that's funny you bring that up, because as you were talking about that and I was listening, I was imagining, the scene in the old story of, the cops unfortunately shoot the person, and then the cop pulls out of his pocket a vial of cocaine, sprinkles it over the body, wipes down the gun, and it's like, oh yeah, he was a drug dealer, and or pulls out his gun and plants it on him. So yeah, to be able to plant DNA at a crime scene, and then all they have to do, like you said, it could be something international or something like that. And then, so all they have to do is plant the DNA at the crime scene, and then they just go, oh yeah, we got forensic evidence. We have DNA evidence, and you're guilty. And like I said, the replication cycle of DNA is 40 minutes. So it replicates pretty fast. And then, once you go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 4 and 4 to 8 and 16 and 34 and 28 and 256, that scale of progression goes exponentially. It's not going to take long to replicate DNA. And that applies to what we were talking about, planting evidence or George Clooney or whatever, right? It's not that hard. And they already have that capability. The question is, what do they do with it? What's the potential nefarious uses? How deep does this go? How far advanced along are they that we don't know about? And you talk about, 20 years from now. And every time we talk about, 20 years from now, really it's like, we ought to cut that in half, to 10 years. And probably more realistically, it's like 5 years or 3 years, right?
Yeah, it's upon us, and I think that's the thing, right? So we're talking about it. We're probably, some academics are talking about this type of stuff, which is where this article comes from. But some lawyers are talking about this. But this is not the top of mind in the zeitgeist of the world in any case, in any capacity, right? We're still trying to legislate 1860, and we're still trying to figure out how to not be bombing people in the Middle East constantly. It's like we are the barbarians. But look, once you let the private sector run away with what's going to run away with, and I'm not saying to stop the private sector by any stretch of the imagination there, because they've done a ton of good for the world, right? The businesses and the people chasing the profit motive and the rest of that, right? I don't want to get into that conversation because that turns into ideological ugly. But the point is that if you suddenly stop all of this and try and make laws rejecting or outright banning this type of stuff, which came into the zeitgeist a few years back. I'm sure you've heard this, maybe even 15 years ago, with the stem cell research. This came in as part of the the embryos and the rest of that stuff, and people outright rejected this as no, this is a step too far. But well, that was one thing. Now this is another thing entirely, where you don't need a viable zygote or anything else. You just need chopsticks from a garbage can. Things get weird, don't they?
Right, they do. Excuse me. And we're fond of saying it's complicated, right? And it does get complicated. And, not to go deeply into the political, but I think your point was well taken at the top of the show that, in the United States and probably worldwide, the Congress, the legislature, they're so far behind the curve. They're so far behind the times. They're so out of touch with, first of all, the needs of the people, the needs of society. I mean, they're completely incapable, inept, and ineffective at addressing those. And those are old, easy issues, feed the people, healthcare, blah, 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 and the economy, etc. But when you start introducing modern science and technology and things on the cutting edge and DNA, they're clueless, they're oblivious, and they have no knowledge of that. And whatever knowledge they do have of it might be the good old boys club and the lobbyists and, hey, look the other way. And, for me personally, I think it is appropriate for them to have legislation to look at these issues, to appoint a special committee and go, hey, if we don't get out ahead of this, the private sector is going to run screaming full bore ahead, and probably already have, right? And we're going to be, 5 years behind the curve and not able to do anything about it until it's too late, right?
Exactly right. Hey, we got Daryl behind you, so we got to cut. So give me your final thought here, and then we'll get you a little bit later on if you got some time for us. I appreciate you dipping in as always and giving us your thoughts here.
Yeah, you bet. I don't think I really have a final thought. I just, like I always want to say, open your perspective, open your mind, think for yourself, think actively and consciously, and ask a lot of questions. And that's what your show's great for. And that's what leads to people not becoming sheeple.
Amen to that. Appreciate it very much. That's Matt in Colorado. He's got a book called Escape the Matrix and Explore Reality, A Guide to Radical Transformation and Empowerment. Links in the description. Got some coupon codes there for free books. Go check it out, guys. Appreciate it, Matt. You're welcome to come back in the third hour. You already know. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for your takes. We're talking about the faceless God of many faces. You'll see why I'm calling it that. And we're talking about DNA paparazzi. At the basis of this conversation is this simple concept. If you discard your DNA, let's say on a napkin or something, and somebody else picks it up, it is now legally theirs, all right, to do whatever they want with it. Okay, so that gets weird, all right? What do you think? Do you think this is a bunch of bogus, and how deep does this rabbit hole go? Let's go to Daryl in New York. Thanks for being patient, Daryl. Are you there? Test 1, 2.
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear. Just making sure. I wanted to make sure you were there. I sent you a message, but you didn't answer me. Damn it, Daryl.
Oh.
But we're good. We're good. Go right ahead. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I think it's a great topic. I really think it's very, very compelling. I was thinking about this. Like, let's say, if they can really clone you, let's say you get in an accident or your parents get in an accident, your kids get in an accident, and you just have enough money to get them cloned, or let's say somebody murders somebody or medical malpractice, for example. Like, if I could get a new body with my consciousness, I would probably exchange it right now, so I don't have to go back into surgery. So let's say you could, like, medical malpractice would cover the cost of your clone, let's say. Or, if you could have the money, you could bring back your parents at a younger age. Maybe you could even have your parents as children. Then if you can't have children, you can always have a clone of somebody you really like. Then I was thinking about, what about child support? Let's say you clone somebody. Can you sue them for child support and say you had sex with them? That could get really sticky, right? And then politicians, maybe they could do something to defame their opponents, you know? So this could get very, very sticky. But then it could be good too, because there are couples that are gay that want to have kids. They can have, you know, a clone or whatever they want, you know? Transgender people can have it. I mean, and everybody can have a baby now. And I think there might be no choice in the future. Maybe we'll have to have cloned kids or DNA-based births, you know, because we won't be able to do it ourselves anymore, which seems like that could happen. And I was thinking also...
That's tragic. That's tragic, Daryl.
Well, right? The victims of shooters, let's say all those kids that are shot in school, we could bring them back, you know, be like part of the budget, you know, of our national budget. And they should bring back everybody that's been, you know, killed by any medical malpractice. They could, you know, okay, we're going to compensate you by returning your loved one. How would that go? Anyway, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. There's again, this really gets dark fast because you could frame people, right? You could say, especially like Matt said, if you have this DNA replication situation and 40-minute cycles and whatnot, or let's say you could have a, you know, we're talking about somebody says they're running for president. It's like 2 years since you announce it and the election actually happens. It's a long election cycle, right? When these things happen, that's plenty of time to be like, all right, let's get some DNA from his chopsticks and then make him a quote love child with this person he's never met. Boom. And the DNA happens like what? Let's say the child was born 6 months before the election. They're like, look, this guy's been philandering all over the world and he's got kids with who knows how many people. Look, here's the DNA. And this is what I'm saying, right? We know how dirty politics get because there's trillions of dollars at stake. You get to rule trillions of dollars in budgets when you're at the top of the political cycle. Okay. And so we've seen the dirty stuff they've done just in the press. So what happens when it takes the next step into what I just described? Things get sick, don't they?
Totally. Don't think they wouldn't do it, you know? They're so capable of doing something devious. Like, you never know, you know? You got to be careful. And how do you protect yourself? Do you have to get like some kind of like, you know, legal support? Is there a special legal team to protect you? Like, you know, call 1-800-LAWYERS, you know?
Yeah, right.
Have you been in
yeah.
Of, having, right?
Yeah, Daryl, imagine this when the commercials come on TV. They're like, are you a victim of DNA theft? Please call us. Lawyers Anonymous at 1-800-766. Right? I mean,
absolutely.
It's coming.
And that'll be the big money, you know? That's what people are going to law school for. There aren't enough lawyers for that. You know, all the divorce lawyers are out of business because this is much more urgent, you know? Boy, can you imagine all the legalities? And then they're going to have to do some amendments on the Constitution for this. You know, and then what if you want an abortion for somebody that you didn't want a DNA from? Or, I don't know, you know, can they sneak somebody, you know, immaculately conceive somebody to ruin them? And then, you know, they look exactly like them. Yeah, it looks just like you. How can you deny it? You know, how do you prove it? How do you prove that? How can you prove it? That's a tough one.
Exactly. I appreciate it, Daryl. We're running out of time here. Your final thought?
I'm good for now. I just want to hear the other callers, and great topic, great show.
I appreciate you calling. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for calling, Daryl. That's Daryl in New York, good friend of mine, good friend of Troubled Minds. Check it out. She's got a YouTube channel called her name. You can find the description down, link in the description. It says follow Daryl here. She's got stuff on Morgellons, some paranormal stuff, all kinds of things. Go check it out. She does sing in English and French as well. And you can find her doing karaoke on Troubled Minds and just click the Discord link, troubledminds.org. There you go. Thank you very much, Daryl. Look, so here's the thing, right? So we're talking about the DNA paparazzi. Now, there's a story, right? This came out May 3rd of 2013. This is a long time ago. Creepy or cool? Portraits derived from the DNA in hair and gum found in public places. Now, we have an artist in New York that's literally picking up DNA in public places and creating, let's say, artistic recreations of people's faces. You want to talk about the faceless god? We're going to get to that. Valar Morghulis, my friends. So that's what we're talking about tonight. This idea of discarding DNA. When you throw it away, should it be the property of whoever happens upon it? And then, of course, does that mean full transfership of your entire genome is allowed and legal. And things get complicated. Things get awfully complicated, don't they? And that's what we're talking about tonight. If you want to be part of the show, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We're going to get into a little bit of cloning, some Star Wars stuff. We're going to get into a little bit of Game of Thrones. We're going to get into this DNA art happening all the way back in 2013 in New York City. What are your thoughts regarding the DNA paparazzi? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More of all this and more of your calls when we return. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. We are talking about the alien abduction phenomenon.
The aliens are looking through your eyes and they're accessing your optic nerve. I'm doing that. Through that optic nerve, they're transferring to your brain. People are random images as they traverse neurons in the brain.
We got, all right, so maybe,
and they also feel them planting or receiving memories or ideas or images.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's going on, guys? It's Tuesday night, which is one of the nights we get together and talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. We do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific. What are those things, you may wonder? Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. And what we're talking about tonight is, this gets super wild because we're talking about the faceless god of many faces. Game of Thrones a little bit, we'll get to that in just a sec, but the DNA paparazzi. And what does that mean? That means, the case law has determined that if you discard your DNA, let's say you throw away, like I said, I used ice cream cup or a plastic spoon or some chopsticks, something like this, and once you discard it, your DNA is on it, but if somebody else comes along and picks it up, it is now legally theirs, all right? Including all of your DNA that is on this object, okay? Now, that's problematic because, of course, let's say 100 years ago, big deal. You got some, nasty, warmed up, reheated spit. Big whoop, right? Who cares? Well, yeah, who cares? But also, when you talk about laboratories and the way this stuff is sort of changing and becoming different in terms of technology, some reheated goo from somebody's mouth, not to be vulgar and disgusting, but becomes problematic in many ways because you can frame people. You can take that DNA, you can grow in a lab and create more DNA and just go throw it all over a crime scene. You can even get to the point where you can maybe have a baby with a celebrity if you're able to get your hands on some celebrity DNA. All right. And there are lots of examples of this, of people selling actual celebrity DNA, or what is claimed to be, because how would you know, right? How would you know? Until I guess you clone them or something, right? So anyway, that's what we're talking about tonight, the DNA paparazzi. And of course, we know the paparazzi follows people around taking pictures and all the rest of that, some of these celebrities, and they're just a giant pain in the ass. Nobody really likes the paparazzi, but apparently people do like their product, or else they wouldn't exist, right? So there's that. But then the DNA paparazzi would be the same instance, following these celebrities around, taking photographs and whatnot. But then also, the second they discard something, or let's say get up from eating at a particular table, they rush in and try and pick up their napkins and their straws, and right? I mean, like, how sick does this get? And that becomes, let's say sick. Sick's a good way to put it, okay? Sick. But again, that's what we're talking about tonight. So love to hear your thoughts. We're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Phone number to call if you want to comment on this is 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Let's look at this real quick. There's a, here you go. Just as a nice segue here, let's go to therichest.com and look at this real fast. This is pretty nuts. The 10 priciest pieces of celebrity DNA. You think this is not a thing already? This was an article published March 1st of 2014. 2014. All right. Okay. Check it out. 10. Scarlett Johansson's used tissue. $5,300. That's fine, right? This should be fine. Mick Jagger's clump of hair, $6,000. We got Beethoven's lock of hair, $7,300. John Lennon's tooth, $30,000. Right here from this article. Links are in this description below if you want to check it out. Babe Ruth's lock of hair, $38,000. Justin Bieber's tuft. What's a tuft? I don't want to ask. I shouldn't ask. $40,668. John Lennon's lock of hair, $48,000. The Lord Nelson and Lady Hamilton locket, $73,300. Elvis Presley's tresses, $115,000. Che Guevara's lock of hair, $119,500. I'm telling you, this is way back to March of 2014. So, good business plan, stealing DNA. Yeah, right? So, interesting that, like, we've got Che Guevara on top of this, the top of the list. Ernesto Che Guevara's lock of hair was sold in 2007, was sold for $119,000. Wow. Ahead of Elvis, John Lennon, and Justin Bieber and Babe Ruth. Interesting, curious thing there. Anyway, so now this is weird, right? So there is a market for this, all right? There is a market for this, and it gets even more strange because check this out. This is the thing. Let me find the article real fast. This is let's see, where is it? Here it is. Okay, this is from Smithsonian Mag, and this goes back to 2013. All right, now look how insane this is. Creepy or cool? This is portraits derived from the DNA in hair and gum found in public places. Oh, here we go. It started with hair. Straight from the article here. Donning a pair of rubber gloves, Heather Dewey Hagborg collected hairs from a public bathroom at Penn Station and placed them in plastic baggies for safekeeping. Then her search expanded to include other types of forensic evidence. As the artist traverses her usual routes through New York City from her home in Brooklyn, down sidewalks onto city buses and subway cars, even into art museums, she gathers fingernails, cigarette butts, and wads of discarded chewing gum. The question, do you get strange looks, I ask in a recent phone conversation. She says, sometimes, but New Yorkers are pretty used to people doing weird stuff. Right? The Great Bambino, exactly. What's up, Derek? Okay, it gets creepier. Okay, here we go. So this particular artist, Dewey Hagborg's odd habit has a larger purpose. The 30-year-old PhD student studying electronic arts at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York, extracts DNA from each piece of evidence she collects, focusing on specific genomic regions from her samples. She then sequences these regions and enters this data into a computer program, which churns out a model of the face of the person who left the hair, fingernail, cigarette, or gum behind. It gets creepier. It gets creepier. From those facial models, she then produces actual sculptures using a 3D printer. When she shows the series called Stranger Visions, she hangs the life-size portraits like life masks on gallery walls. Oftentimes, beside a portrait is a Victorian-style wooden box with various compartments holding the original sample. Data about it and a photograph of where it was found, okay, etc., so on. In any case, right, if you read this article, again, I'm not going to read the entire thing because I'll bore you to tears, but look, there's some examples here of literally she's recreating these facial art reconstruction things based on literal DNA she finds discarded. Okay, right? Harmless, maybe. Creepy, definitely. Harmless, maybe. But you see, this is all the way back in 2013. All right, a 3D printer. She's doing DNA genome sequencing, pre-selecting parts that maybe have facial data she can reconstruct, and she's building these faces for an art project. All right. Yeah, fine. This is fine. Okay, but what happens when that's 2013? By the way, it's 9 years later, more than that, 9+ years later. And what do you think the technology is like now? What do you think it's like now? And it got me thinking in terms of, well, this whole idea of the faceless man. You guys ever seen Game of Thrones? Valar Morghulis. All right. Now, in the Game of Thrones lore, I'm not going to spoil too much if you haven't seen it. This is really fantastic if you haven't seen Game of Thrones or read the books. Okay. But they have this cult. It's a cult of assassins known as the Faceless Men. All right. And they worship the many-faced god. And what do? Well, they do almost exactly like we're describing here. They have this hall where they have faces. And these faces are used as assassin-type masks to take on the personage of somebody else. It's unclear exactly if it's magic, if it's science, or if it's a combination of the two in the Game of Thrones series, okay? However, we're talking about, let's say, when somebody gets assassinated, they will try and keep their face in perfect condition so they could remove the face itself. And whether it, again, through science or sorcery, they keep these faces and they're able to assume the people of past assassinations to, of course, become invisible people. All right, there you go, Valar Morghulis, which, of course, means all men must die. And if you guys have seen Game of Thrones, you know what I'm talking about. We'll get into that if you guys want to talk about that. But this is the craziest part. If they were doing this in 2013, recreating art, faces of people from discarded DNA in public, what do you think they could do now? 9+ years later, what do you think they could do? And that's where this starts to get super, super creepy, because we are talking about the DNA paparazzi. And so, again, you know, like we talked about Bite Labs and maybe making edible celebrity meat from the celebrity DNA, you know, like you want some Justin Bieber choice cuts. Well, there you go. You just need a Justin Bieber DNA sample and they can do the thing, right? Create gross stuff from it. And that becomes problematic because once you get the DNA sample, you can create more DNA, right? Just basic DNA. You don't have to like make babies in labs. You just replicate it, grow more of it, and you got more of it. And there it is. You could have an entire lab based on Justin Bieber, right? And have all kinds of sick things. And so this is where, again, this becomes very, very, very bad. Okay, because, with the way technology is progressing and all the rest, this is a problem. And that's what we're talking about tonight. So what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear what you think about this. Do you know anything about the Faceless Men from Game of Thrones? We'll get into that. And is this the perfect assassin? Of course, because the Faceless Men in Westeros and in the east of Braavos, of course, in Game of Thrones lore, were actually the most formidable assassins in all the land. Even so much, so expensive that the old, what's his name, King Baratheon, when they first started Game of Thrones, he didn't want to pay for it to go assassinate the Khaleesi, if you remember, because the Faceless Men were far too expensive. because they were far too effective, right? So pretty nuts here regarding how this sort of shakes out in terms of DNA, creating faces from discarded DNA, and then where this can lead. Again, we're 9 years past creating faces from a cigarette butt you find in New York to now what happens? Are we actually able to create, again, clones? Are we actually able to create these faces for what kind of purposes? Or what about the idea, the old idea of, let's say, MK Ultra? What about that? And that idea, right? I got thinking in terms of, okay, so if you have DNA and you could create faces like this, well, does that mean you could create the ultimate assassins? Because you could, I don't know, create faces like this, actual faces. And let's say, could you seamlessly surgery them onto somebody? Is that a thing? Could you? I don't know. Like this starts to get, like I said, it's a good thing I'm not a scientist, because I'd know a lot more about this, and it would be even more creepy, right? But it gets even more sick when you start to think, okay, so you could frame people if you have their DNA, right? You grow it in the lab, you throw it all over a crime scene, no problem. Then the Church of Science has already indicted you and put you behind bars. But then the second thing becomes, what happens when you start to grow different, let's say, I don't know, not bite labs, but what if you start to grow clones of little George Clooney's, right? Or little Kevin Bacon's, right? Or still say Kevin Bacon would be a good seller, says Don. There you go. Kevin Bacon. You like a little bacon with your Kevin? Well, here you go. Here you go. So I don't know. And that's the whole idea here, is that how sick does this get? How deep does this rabbit hole go? And that's what's on my mind tonight. If you want to be part of the show, love to hear your thoughts at 702-957-1037. If not, we'll get into the ultimate assassin. We'll get into the faceless men, and of course the response to Valar Morghulis, which is of course there's a response to that, because there's always a response to something, isn't there, in High Valyrian. So okay, so I don't know. Again, this was one of those things that kind of stood out to me, as case law has described that if you discard your DNA and somebody else picks it up, it's now theirs. Okay, meaning that, like, if you spit on the sidewalk, you've discarded it, right? Gross, don't do that. But if you do, you've discarded your DNA, and somebody walking behind you can scoop it up and put it in a little plastic bag, and then head straight to the lab, and there you go. There it is. Gotcha. Okay, gotcha on air. Appreciate it, Derek. Go right ahead, sir. Let's go to after scooping up spit off the sidewalk. Sorry for the terrible intro. Let's go to Derek in Massachusetts. The Night Stalker.
What's happening? This kind of hits me close to home, because like people who know me know that before I leave the supermarket every day, I go around to all my aisles and I like sterilize everything, just because I'm afraid of the big supermarket using my DNA to replace me with a bunch of cloning stock bots. So I'm the most valuable DNA in the grocery game.
There you go. There you go. Hey, they said that Madonna does the same thing. She goes into a thing, and her, like, after she does a concert, she brings her own brand new toilet seat. She takes them with her, wipes down everything with like sanitizes the entire space she was in. Hey, so you're not the only one, man.
I mean, I don't actually do that, but I'm thinking about it pretty soon. If the technology is at a place where I got to start worrying about that, then I'm the first person they're going to go after. Madonna is probably like. Probably the part of this clone thing you're talking about. Probably part of this, like, she's worried about her DNA going elsewhere, like for because she's famous, but also because there's like a magic component too. There's a little bit of a tangent, but like, did you ever watch the Sopranos before, back in the day?
I didn't know. That's what.
Or like, are you aware of it?
Seen. Yeah, I'm aware of it for sure. Yeah.
At one point, they all go to Italy, and Tony, like the Don at this point, like the godfather, like the boss of the family, meets like the boss of like the Italian version of it, like the Italian connection to their family, like the same family but the Italian side of it. And she at one point is like clipping her toenails, and then like has the nails burned, because she's afraid like another like mob boss or one of her enemies will use the nails against her. So she's worried about like voodoo and like magic and stuff, that type of stuff. So, which is another element, like kind of element to it too, is like, if we now have the ability to, if our DNA is kind of everywhere, and then all of a sudden there's a bank of our DNA somewhere, if like with this magic component, can all of a sudden like somebody print out a perfect voodoo doll for me if they want to with my DNA? Like, do they need the hair that's on my head, or do they just need my DNA and some type of link between me and that voodoo doll because it's made using my DNA? You know, if there is just some like premium access, like Patreon version of DNA, a DNA bank. Like, oh, I can get Derek's DNA for $50. That's a deal, you know. And then all of a sudden they have some magical totem of me.
And yeah, and so the rival grocery chain is like, it's their busiest day of the week.
Exactly, yeah.
He's got a backache.
Yeah, I'm just dropping jars of pickles all over the place. Big hassle, you know. So you mentioned the celebrity meat thing, and that's definitely a possibility, like the idea of some black market celebrity meat cannibalism circuit where people are dining on the more valuable the celebrity, the more valuable the meat, that type of stuff, which is probably a satire now, but if we're at this point, I mean, eventually that's going to happen. I had a friend who made a movie in film school all about that. Like people were eating, like the climate was really bad, so people were eating, or like the economy is really bad, so people were eating human meat, like fake human meat made out of human DNA. But then all of a sudden, something happens with the process, and they run out of this fake meat. So people are craving it and actually become cannibals and start running around trying to kill people because they have a taste for human meat. But with the Faceless Man assassin thing, it gets me thinking about, like, we're already kind of using our fingerprints and our like faces as our password for like our iPhones and that kind of stuff. Like the futuristic lock is going to be like our fingerprint and some type of DNA thing. So what happens when we're at a point where this technology is very easily accessible, like to like a 3D printer type scenario, where like what's the next lock going to be? What are they going to use when DNA is no longer safe to secure your stuff? You know, are they going to like? Is there going to be some kind of type of machine that analyzes our thoughts, like our unique brain frequencies and all that kind of stuff? Like, who knows? And then, as far as like the cloning type stuff, like they might crank out clones of us, but they could also just use our DNA to make like robot skin. Like, whose DNA did they use, if any, to make that like skin on that finger they made last week or whatever that we were talking about on the news? So, like, and are you cool with having your DNA be used to put these like fake skin on these robots, or for like organ like placement type stuff? Like, I don't know. I mean, it could be a way to get around organ donation, but also we don't really know what. I'm not sure. What is it weird for you to be walking around and all of a sudden see all these robots in the future that are like wearing your faces or something like that, or is just part of their makeup is like your DNA. I think it's kind of weird and creepy. I'm rambling, so what do you think about that?
No, super creepy. But then, so it goes back to that same idea. Then, if DNA is our source code, what do you feel about discarding it? Like if you toss a spliff, right? Somebody can just peel your DNA off of that. That's fine, right? Or that's a problem. Like that shouldn't be a thing at all. And this is it. Like the court has said, oh yeah, it's fine. Cops are pulling DNA out of your garbage. They're like, we think that's the guy, but we can't get a warrant. So we'll just wait for him to throw his napkins away, and then we'll check his DNA from that, right? And that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
No, get out of here, man. That's not fine at all.
No, it's crazy. It's great. And like, if they start using DNA to make people's, like, it just becomes so. If it's so much for risk, or it becomes so ubiquitous that they have to just address it, it becomes a commonplace in culture. like if you're like Matt was saying, if they have these designer babies or couples who can't have kids, they'll start like. Kind of surfing through the brochure and stuff, it becomes really, really like regular. What, like, if they use that DNA for a robot or something like that, if they use that DNA for some fake organ or something, is there a connection to me with that thing? The same thing like with the voodoo doll and the magic. Like, we don't know that much about DNA. We don't know what the junk does. We don't know basically anything. And is there some weird metaphysical thing that we're missing here? Or are people going to have robots with your skin on it? They kick them and you feel the kick 1,000 miles away. We're running out of time, so sorry about talking so fast and rambling, but crazy night at the store.
No, so. Perfect, man. Don't worry. If I see your DNA on sale, I'll alert the authorities immediately. And Matt says he says, don't sell yourself short, Derek. Your DNA is worth at least $100.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate you dropping in here. We got like a minute left. If you got anything else, my friend.
Yeah, I mean the faceless god thing, the faceless assassin thing is definitely cool, and I can see that absolutely happening. And this just gets really scary. Like, they can at any point, if they wanted to, say, "Ooh, I don't like Derek, the Night Stalker. He knows too much. Let's take him out," or that type of deal. And then they can just throw my DNA on anything, and I can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford one of Daryl's high-powered DNA lawyers and stuff. Like, for all we know, they've been doing that for 20 years. That there's innocent people in jail right now for that exact thing. Who knows? And I'm sure that some assassin club somewhere has a wall full of faces, probably, with all our faces on it. Maybe, who knows? But what a time! Great show, Mike. Sorry about rambling.
You're good, man. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for dropping in on a busy night. That's Derek in Massachusetts, the Night Stalker, a good friend of mine, good friend of the show's. Check him out. He's got a YouTube channel. You can actually see him stalking. He's got a trailer on his YouTube channel of him actually being the best grocer in all the land. And go follow his channel. Let's inspire him to do some more content because he's a brilliant dude. And on the tip of the spear when it comes to synchronicities and the synchro mystic aspect of things. So thank you very much for appreciate the call, Derek. And it is a fantastic thought in terms of, well, what about DNA voodoo? Things get weird. And when you're on Troubled Minds, things get weird. Thanks to Derek for popping in and turning it on its head here. But that's the question tonight. What about taking DNA, discarded DNA? How do you feel regarding the law on that, which says it's fine, it's all good? But then what kind of nefarious things going down that rabbit hole can happen? Clearly, we said you can frame people. The cops are using it against us by taking napkins out of garbage cans. But what about, add this to the mix of what ifs. What if getting DNA, discarded DNA off of an old cigarette butt can help create the perfect voodoo doll of you? Love to hear your thoughts at 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More coming up after the break. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're taking your phone calls as we discuss the DNA paparazzi. What exactly does that mean? Well, it means that the lower courts have determined that if you discard your DNA, whoever comes along and picks it up, it is now legally theirs. Now, of course, 100 years ago, that doesn't mean anything. It means you got a nice, grotesque little, souvenir. Well, but in the 21st century, things become a little more strange than that because DNA can be used for all manner of things, and some have called it, including myself, the actual source code of your individual self. Okay, and there's a lot of things here we're talking about tonight in terms of let's say you spit on the sidewalk, or you drop a cigarette butt, or your chopsticks in your Chinese food, things like this. The paparazzi, of course, are after celebrities, and they're taking pictures of these people and chasing them around, and they see them in bars, they see them at restaurants, they see them all over the place. So at what point is this sort of DNA paparazzi going to start trying to collect these grotesque souvenirs to sell or collect the DNA of celebrities? And that's when this becomes, let's say, I think paparazzi has always kind of been over the line in many cases here, but let's say this is where things just become not just over the line, they become pretty grotesque, okay? Because as Derek described there, the Night Stalker, always spitting hot fire, he said, what if this is a situation where they get your DNA? Does that mean they could have the source code for like the voodoo doll to create, let's say, to not give you a back rub? Let's say they stick it in, you guys know what a voodoo doll is. So, or what about witchcraft? They talk about, how you would cut out a piece of somebody's clothing and do some sort of ritual magic, something to that effect, right? But what if instead you need DNA in some cases for these magic spells or rituals where they say that you need a lock of hair, or you need this or that or the other thing, right? And that becomes super, super weird because, well, maybe this is where you get this DNA stuff from to do any of this. And I'm with you, Dawn. I don't know anything about voodoo either, but I do know the Hollywood representation of it. But I have seen that with some of this ritual stuff, they do need locks of hair and whatnot from any of the rest of this. So I don't know. It gets kind of weird, right? And then we go back to this artist. Let me make sure we got no calls. We're good. 702-957-1037. What are your thoughts here? Should people be able to collect your DNA and legally have it transferred to them as owner just because you've discarded it? Okay, and there's a number of things here that are actually super creepy, right? Because we talked about the Golden State Killer, all right? And the Golden State Killer, again, was an old time guy. This guy, like how old is he? At some point, he was okay. No, he was known for a series of rapes and murders in California in the 70s and 80s. He evaded capture for decades, but his genes finally caught up to him. Armed with the DNA that the killer left behind at various crime scenes, investigators used a shot-in-the-dark method to track him down. They painstakingly searched through numerous genetic profiles on popular genealogy websites to see if they could find DNA that matched that of the murderer, and they did just that. In fact, the investigators homed in on the genetic profile of someone who appeared to be related to the killer. The bulk of the search was done on GED Match, an open-source genealogy website that makes users' genetic information available for anyone to see without needing a court order, according to the San Jose Mercury News. And right, there we go. And in this case, right, if this was actually the guy, and it seems like this was probably the guy, they caught him. And, thank you, because let's catch this fool. But let's not, break the laws of actual search and seizure and securing your persons and papers to catch these people, because what happens next, right? They use it against you and against me and against people who aren't this terrible, because we're dissidents or we're free thinkers or we reject politics entirely or whatever, right? There becomes a very, very real problem with this, because, hey, there's a reason you need court orders. There's a reason you need judge intervention to get to actual warrants for people and to search their things. And this is not right. This seems like a really grotesque loophole in that they can just they did this not just through a DNA database, through a relative of his, but then they went to his house once they identified the suspect with the new information. They drew items from his trash, verified his DNA, and he was the guy. And there you go. They caught the murderer, right? Yeah, justice is served. Clap your hands. Everything's fine, right? Well, okay. But you see where this is very, very, very invasive for a lot of reasons. And, it's one thing when you say, well, they got the bad guy, Mike. Yeah, they got the bad guy. Fine, right? As far as I'm aware, they got the bad guy. And that's fine. Okay. But except, again, back to that whole idea, if you guys know anything about the law, there's something called the fruit of the poison tree. It's a tenet in law, which means that if you obtain evidence illegally, you're not allowed to use that illegally obtained evidence in court. Okay? That is what's known as fruit of the poison tree. Because clearly and obviously, they shouldn't have been able to do this. All of that should have been thrown out, and they should have had to have made a case on information they should have obtained legally. You see what's going on here? And this is why this gets really, really dark, because who knows what actually happened with this? And I don't know. I don't really know. Did they really get this DNA from an open source thing that his great niece or something submitted? I don't know, right? Maybe. I don't know. Again, it's hard to say that you don't trust the establishment, but from all the dirty stuff they're doing all the time, politicizing law enforcement and all the rest of the stuff they've done over the last decade or so, and that's not even the decade before that. I wasn't paying close enough attention. I'm sure it's been going on forever, but this is problematic, okay? And so we're not talking about this in particular to this guy, right? We're also talking about the idea that you can, wouldn't you know it, you don't have to discard a cigarette at all. What about this? This is from Live Science. Researchers can now collect and sequence DNA from the air. This is fine. Yeah, this is from April 5th, 2021. All right, we talked about this back on the news show when we did this in the same time. And listen to this. We leave DNA all over the place, including in the air. And for the first time, researchers have collected animal DNA from mere air samples, according to a new study. Study. See what happens when you read the next line before you finish the old line. A study and DNA becomes a study. In a new study, the DNA that living things, human and otherwise, shed into the environment is called environmental DNA, or eDNA. Collecting eDNA from water to learn about the species living there has become fairly common. But until now, no one had attempted to collect animal eDNA from the air. All right? Yeah. Quote, what we wanted to know was whether we could filter eDNA from the air to track the presence of terrestrial animals, said author Elizabeth Clare, an ecologist at Queen Mary University of London, said in a video abstract for the study published March 31st in the journal Peer. Quote, we are interested in whether we could use this air DNA as a way to assess what species were present in a burrow or a cave where we could not easily see or capture them, she added. All right, so you see, like as technology not only improves in what you can do with DNA, technology improves in the ways you can collect DNA. And this, again, like I keep saying the word, it's problematic. But what are your thoughts regarding, so the whole premise of the show tonight is if you discard your DNA, all right, again, on chopsticks or you spit or, right, a napkin or something like this, right? Again, don't spit on the sidewalk. I keep saying that because it's gross and people do it and I see it all the time. I'm not going to tell you what gross thing I saw the other day, but you get the idea, right? People are discarding their own DNA all the time in public places, right? And sure, it might be fine because it's just, normal people in public places. But what happens when those DNA samples become, let's say, they start getting collected and cataloged and maybe put into a hall of faceless men as the assassins of let's say the best assassins in the land, right? MK Ultra style. Who knows? I don't know what's really going on here. But what are your thoughts? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org and we'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. Now, okay, so let's see. What else do we got here? There's more of this. Oh, and check this out. Okay. Now, regarding nefarious DNA stuff, listen to this. This is from the original paper here talking about the actual DNA paparazzi, okay, and the genetic paparazzi. Now, if you guys saw this recently, Vladimir Putin had a meeting with President Macron. Pardon my French, literally, but so the French president or prime minister, whatever the hell they call the guy. And they sat, if you noticed, at very, very opposite ends of the table. And this is what's happening with heads of state now. They're having meetings like this because, right, they have their team come in and they wipe down the table and the chair and whatnot to make sure there's no poison on it or whatever. And, they test it and do all those things. And then they sit them so far apart that they can't have some sort of like actual DNA collection happening live, right? And if that doesn't tell you what you need to know about the way technology has progressed, this is how the heads of state are actually acting with each other. And this isn't the first time we've heard about this. Again, like I said, Madonna does this. She's known to bring in her own toilet seats when she does like a tour. She comes into a place to have a team come in and literally sanitize everything, bring in her own toilet seats. And when she leaves, they'll take those same toilet seats and destroy them. And then on top of that, they will sanitize every single thing she touched and was in and literally leave it cleaner than they found it type of thing because she expects people are going to be stealing her DNA. And this is the crazy part, right? When you're seeing heads of state and super rich people do this type of stuff, you got to know it's because they're trying to protect that DNA signature from what? From nefarious purposes, from things that are actually happening out there. Now, this is not decorative. They're not sitting, 30 feet apart because it looks good, right? This is not good for a nice negotiation regarding wartime, right? No, this is a protection, right? So not only that, Kim Jong-un, you guys know this regarding him when he travels anywhere, like he traveled to China not recently, let's say a year and a half ago. I guess that's recently. And he's been known to bring his entire toilet entourage sort of situation where he exclusively goes to the bathroom in a particular place, and they probably just take the waste back with them and then get rid of it somewhere back on North Korean soil, right? But he doesn't want his DNA being collected even with China. He doesn't trust them. And so, again, this whole thing starts to make you go, what the hell's really going on here, right? So there's all that going on in the world. And if heads of state are super paranoid about this stuff, you got to know there's a reason why they're paranoid about this stuff, okay? Now, this gets even more weird because straight from this article, look at this. People whose genetic material has been taken without their consent may also raise a claim of conversation that their property has been interfered with and lost. Check this out, nefarious purposes. Courts in Florida are currently considering a conversion claim in a private dispute where the former CEO of Marvel Entertainment and his wife accused a millionaire businessman of stealing their DNA to prove that they were slandering him through a hate mail campaign. This approach replaces replaces the narrow legal framework of privacy with an even narrower framework of property, reducing genetics to an object that someone possesses. And if you want that article, it's here as well. And this is where things get creepy, okay? And this is from Gizmodo, how a legal brawl between two rich guys could change how we think about DNA. Now think about that. We're talking about rich people, millionaire, millions and millions of dollars, okay? And what are they doing? They're getting the DNA of, let's say, competitors, and they're using that DNA to taint evidence to make it look like they're being accosted, okay? Isn't that what I said? Isn't that what I said earlier? People taking DNA and planting it at a crime scene to put you as the perpetrator, as the guilty individual, right? It's happening. It's happening right here. This is from 2018, 3 years ago, right? Yeah. So check this out. Ronald's got it right, by the way. He says, like most celebrities, Madonna is out of touch with reality. Well, what about the heads of state? Anyway, so check this out. This is straight from Gizmodo. Again, all these links are in the description if you want to check it out. And then we'll get to the Faceless Man real quick before we wind this out. So check this out. Toronto businessman Harold Perrenboom and Marvel Entertainment chairman Isaac Perlmutter were locked in an absurd suburban skirmish, bickering over who would run the tennis center at Sloan's Curve, the exclusive Palm Beach waterfront community where both men resided. Yeah, rich people being stupid, spoiled rich people. Perrenboom wanted to open bidding for the position. Perlmutter was happy with the status quo, a woman named Karen Donnelly who had run the center for years. Soon, the skirmish escalated to an all-out war. Bankrolled by Perlmutter, Donnelly sued Perrenboom, claiming that he had slandered her at community board meetings. Oh, okay, all right. Meanwhile, Perrenboom began receiving volumes of hate mail, and his neighbors and business associates received letters accusing him of murder and molesting children. Naturally, Perrenboom sued Perlmutter back, and it didn't stop there. Next came the event that they would elevate this reality TV-ready drama to a case of natural interest. This is where it gets super creepy. Perrenboom, seeking to pin Perlmutter as the mastermind behind the hate mail campaign, conspired with his attorney to covertly collect DNA from Perlmutter in order to compare it to DNA extracted from saliva on the hate mail envelopes. So the two came up with an elaborate scheme. His attorney subpoenaed and deposed Perlmutter and his wife as part of a separate lawsuit. During the course of that litigation, Perrenboom's attorney attempted to gather Perlmutter and his wife's DNA from objects they had touched, including papers specially treated to collect genetic material. Eventually, they captured DNA from a water bottle the Perlmutters had used inside the courtroom. You see what's going on here? Now, when I say these things, when I say, look, people are going to use this for nefarious purposes, look what's happening out there now. This is 2018. Now, granted, it's a stupid dispute over a tennis court or a tennis club or whatever the hell this is, but people are doing it now, okay? That's 2018. It's 2022, guys. This is years later, and this is the point. If you have a little bit of money, you can start to do these things. And these things, well, again, how deep does this rabbit hole go? Got a few minutes left. If you guys have comments on this or anybody wants to dip in and say hi, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Now let's get to this idea. Back to this again. This whole faceless, the faceless man thing. Okay, so we've got this. Creepy or cool, this artist in New York in May of 2013 that was collecting public DNA, discarded DNA, cigarette butts, hair, fingernail clippings, whatnot. And she was taking the genetic composition of these, boiling it down to facial, let's say, reconstructive pinpoints in the DNA structure, and then creating art from the faces of random people. And yep, it's super creepy, right? But it got me thinking in terms of the ultimate assassin, the Faceless Men. The Faceless Men, of course, are from Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones, again, let's read this real quick so you guys know what the hell we're talking about. And the Faceless Men, listen to this, are a religious society of assassins who worship the many-faced god, or the god of death. They are based in the House of Black and White in the free city of Bravos, though they claim to have originated in the Valyrian Freehold. If you guys don't know anything about Game of Thrones, that's okay. Hang tight. I'll fill in the blanks, okay? Followers of Him of Many Faces consider death to be part of the natural order of things and a merciful end to suffering. According to the guild, the god is present in many religions under different names. He's called the Black Goat in Qohor, he's called the Lion of Night in Yi Ti, and the Stranger in the Faith of the Seven. as we know, interestingly, in Westeros and Westerosi, their religious orders, these gods are interchangeable depending on who you ask, right? So this is the crazy part, right? For a price, the guild will agree to kill anyone in the known world, considering this contract to be a sacrament of their god. The price is always high or dear, but within the means of the person if they are willing to make the sacrifice. The cost of their services also depends on the prominence and security of the target. Now, the craziest thing about the Faceless Men and the god of, or the many-faced god, or the god of many faces, the different names, is it's exactly this. Of their assassinated individuals, what they do is they take their face, and it becomes a collection that they hang up in this, home base, okay, in this temple. And the assassins, once you've been trained in the art of killing people in their, let's say you have to pass all the trials and all the rest of the things, and there's a whole thing with Arya Stark and the Faceless Men. If you guys haven't seen Game of Thrones, I highly recommend it. I actually highly recommend you read the books. They're far better than the series itself, but if you don't have the time, who's got the time to read lots of books that are huge? Check out the series if you haven't. It's very good. But the thing is this, right? So if they're using the faces of actual deceased, okay, and they're using these faces through, again, like I said previously, through some sort of sorcery or even science, they're using the face to disguise themselves and infiltrate, and of course, as any good assassin might, show up unnoticed until it's time to do the deed, okay? And so it got me thinking in terms of all of this, not just the DNA sequencing, not just the many-faced god and the assassins and the ultimate assassin, and how, let's say, a doppelganger or a shapeshifter would be the ultimate assassin, because they could be very much like, what's her name, Mystique in the X-Men, right? How she could be anybody in a moment, and then, turn the corner and she's somebody else. She would be nearly impossible to catch. But what if the many-faced god, or this idea of faces on assassins, well, becomes a reality through, removing a face on somebody and surgically adding, let's say, through again, science or sorcery, another face to cover up the identity of the assassin themselves. Right? So do you think, now to add to this, as this discussion goes tonight, do you think that this technology is possible today? All right? Do you think this is a real thing? Do you think that maybe we don't need DNA for it? Maybe you can have plastic faces that are, let's say they work. Let's say they can fool somebody. But I don't know, like, how deep does this rabbit hole go? Do you think this is actually a thing happening now? What about MK Ultra subjects? What about Sirhan? And he says that he blacked out when he shot RFK, right? Like, he had no idea what happened, and he woke up and he was in custody. So I mean, is this really going on with some of this stuff, and how deep does the rabbit hole go? So I don't know. It gets me thinking in terms of that. And then, of course, you start looking at the Faceless Men, you end up with Janus. Janus is of course, the Roman god Janus, the god of beginnings, gates, transitions, time, duality, doorways, passages, frames, and endings, okay? And now Janus, in particular, is depicted with two faces. Looking both ways. Again, the god of thresholds, the god of time, but also known as the two-faced god. All right? Because, of course, Janus himself is looking to the past and looking to the future. And so in this discussion tonight, are we not Janus looking at the old ways of DNA collection and how it may have been, let's say, not dangerous at all, just a little gross. But now we have this entirely new rabbit hole of ideas of what the next 20 years may bring. And look, think of it this way. We're talking about maybe the many-faced God and, using a face, this type of thing. But what happens when deep fakes aren't even deep fakes anymore digitally? What about a real deep fake? What happens if you take Tom Cruise and you clone him in a lab and, well, there you go. You just film him and you don't need a deep fake at all, do you? Because you got the real thing. So I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot to this. We'll continue talking about it. That's about what I had tonight regarding this stuff. So as always, and you know me, I don't know the answers. The whole idea of this is to just kind of throw some ideas out and think about what the hell's really going on in the world we live in. Because as you know, as we know, there's a situation which means that a lot of the technology that's actually happening out there, we won't see for decades. As we know, DARPA's probably 20, 30, 40, 50 years ahead of us, has been speculated by many people. So what they're using now currently is not what we see in the private sectors. So, well, how does this end? I don't know. But it does seem creepy as hell, doesn't it? Because DNA in those terms are... yes, gross. Let's say gross. I think gross is a good way to put it. So I don't know. You guys tell me. I have no idea here. I'm not the answers guy, so don't take this and run to the bank with it and say, Michael Strange said all this stuff is happening. I'm saying let's think about whether the possibility of this happening or not is real. Because, of course, that's what we do. What's up, Clear Light? I see you there over on YouTube. How are you? What's going on, guys? Sleep well, Fred. I appreciate it. And, yeah, I don't know. So don't, like I said, be very careful. Conspiracies are everywhere, but not everything is a conspiracy. And that should be a t-shirt as well while we're doing t-shirts. Speaking of t-shirts, that's right. We're in the Troubled Minds t-shirt. Check it out. If you want to help the show, troubledfans.com. You get Troubled Minds merch there. They got t-shirts, hats, and all the rest of that. Please give it a look if you guys are interested and want to help and want some cool swag to go. Got hats and shirts and everything else. Look, as we finish, it goes like this. If you're listening to us on the Fringe FM, stay tuned for Joe Roop Lighting the Void. If you're listening to us on any other platform, including the podcast feed, stay tuned for a third hour of Troubled Minds. And as we finish, it goes like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night. Right, we are off the Fringe FM. We're doing our thing. Look, third hour of Troubled Minds is for you. If you guys are like, yeah, I don't have anything to say, that's cool. Like I said, it's no problem to me. It won't even offend me because you can't hit a home run every night, or sometimes it's hard to sort of formulate thoughts around the narratives that I'm spinning here. So you guys tell me, third hour is for you if you want to be part of the show. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Going to take a quick 2-minute break and more Troubled Minds on the way. Like I said, if it's kind of like I got a couple things to get to, I'm going to get to some of the oldest assassinations, the best assassins in the world, and kind of look at that through a frame of maybe this idea of DNA and the faceless man and the faceless God, the many-faced God. And if not, well, like I said, that's cool. We can do it another time. So don't go anywhere. 2-minute break, more Troubled Minds on the way, and looking to hear from you. Third hour is for you, and looking to take some more calls. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. 2 minutes. More Troubled Minds on the way. Be right back. Okay, welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. We're taking your phone calls as we discuss this idea of the DNA paparazzi. What's it look like? How creepy is this? And, well, yeah, there we go. 702-957-1037. That's 702 957-1037. You can find the phone number and the Discord link at troubledminds.org, and we'll put you on the show that way. It's as easy as that. And what are your thoughts here? Like I said, the way technology is just kind of changing so fast, it makes things, let's say, problematic. As Matt says, as I say, Matt in Colorado there says, it's complicated, and things are complicated. And that's why I think we need to talk about this stuff before it becomes, let's say, a very, very big problem. And that's what we're doing tonight. So if you want to be part of the show, part of the discussion, what's up, Tam Bam? I see you there over on Rockfin. How are you? Let's go to Matt in California. Matt in California, you're on Troubled Minds. Are you there? Test 1 2.
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Good. Kind of a scary show tonight. I don't like the DNA stuff because it's kind of freaky, the technology that they have. Like what we talk about, like underground, the dumps, the underground bases, and we have people giving those DNA ancestry kits. You're literally giving them your DNA. Seems kind of creepy.
Exactly. I wonder, like we've talked about in the past with cloning. It's like they clone the sheep, they clone the frogs, they clone all the things, right? But they ain't cloned a monkey yet. Well, what about people, right? It's happening somewhere in some underground base. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so the forensic things. I watch these like forensic shows, and it happens all the time where they think there's a killer, but they don't really have, like, they just have circumstantial evidence. And so, he has an alibi, they can't get him. So they follow him around and they wait for him to like smoke a cigarette or like drink a cup. And then they'll go in the garbage can and get it, extract the DNA, and find out that he is the murderer and convict him of murder. Now, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, like that's kind of cool because, yeah, it help find a killer, that's awesome. But at the same time, when it let it loose into the wild of people are weird and they'll do weird stuff.
You cut out, I think. What's going on? Still there? Matt, are you there? You cut out? Nice. Internet connection? Something happened, Matt. You said people are weird and will do weird stuff if you're there. Matt. Can't hear you. Okay, he's got a good point there. It does happen all the time, and that's justice for you anymore, right? And it is that double-edged sword. So I'll fill in the gap here till Matt comes back if you're there. Talking to Matt in California here, and we're discussing this idea of the DNA paparazzi. And you there, Matt? Test 1 2.
Yeah.
Okay, you were cutting out. The last thing, I hear you now. The last thing you said was people are weird and will do weird things. Go right ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, what's the line between like what's right and wrong of if we can convict people of murder, or where does it become legal and illegal to do that, to collect people's DNA?
Yeah, and so that's the thing. So the courts have said that once it's discarded, it's not yours anymore. Which, okay, that's fine. But then there should be some limits, because we're leaving DNA all over the place, right? Like literally all over the damn place. Like we just saw scientifically that they're collecting it out of the air to identify animals in an ecosystem type stuff. So we're literally just shedding this all over the place. So it's unreasonable to say that if you don't pick it up, or if you do pick it up, it becomes yours. But there should be protections on what people could use it for, right? And that's the thing. There aren't any currently, as far as I'm aware. And that's why these conversations need to take place. I think somebody taking full custody of your DNA because you threw away a Starbucks cup, that's absurd. Like that, people can do some creepy stuff, can't they?
Yeah, there's just some pop culture references and why it's kind of scary. There's a video game I play called Dragon Age, and that's we were talking about Mass Effect the other night. It's the other fantasy version of it. It's like dwarves and elves and wizards. And anyways, in the storyline, it's like there's magicians, and just like in the X-Men, the humans and the people that have powers. The regular humans are afraid of the people with power, so they try to regulate them or lock them away. And so they start locking all these magicians in this tower that they can't use magic. And so they're basically prisoners. And one of the ways that they get it to where they can't escape is they take a vial of their DNA and they have these rooms of, just shelves and shelves of all the magician's DNA, so that if they escape, they could use the DNA to like track them down or like do like blood magic on them. And that's kind of creepy about how when we give people DNA, those DNA ancestry kits, we're literally just giving them our DNA. So who knows what they could do with that? We talked about what DNA voodoo.
Yeah. So I think it's a fantastic angle from Night Stalker there. So what do you know about that regarding, let's say, I'm not asking you to cast spells or give away any trade secrets if you know anything about this, but let's say just in the periphery, let's say in the zeitgeist, what do you know about using, let's say DNA, a lock of hair or something like this to do cast spells? This is a thing has been spoken of, but is it a real thing? Do you believe this? Is this true? I don't know, man. I you know me, like I try to be cautiously skeptical of all things, but it seems like people have been doing this type of thing for a long time without DNA, without the actual DNA. But a lock of hair would be exactly DNA, wouldn't it?
It's not my cup of tea, not my thing. But I just believe it is like it's something personal of the person. Like it doesn't have to be a lock of hair or DNA. It could be like a ring or something personal of the person will boost the magic of the spell. But one of my jokes, and like I said, I don't do any of that. But one of my jokes when people say, I find out, oh, you do this, I don't believe in magic. Oh, okay, let me get a lock of your hair then. Joke.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, it's fine. No problem. No sweat. Just give me a lock of your hair, right? We used to do back in the early '90s. We used to do drug tests with a lock of hair. Like I don't know why. Most places they want you to go pee in a cup or whatever, right? But like, I was literally when we get new hires, I was a manager back then at a retail establishment, and I was literally cutting like a little piece of people's hair to like send into this freaking lab. I mean, holy shit, right? Like what in the world is going on? And I didn't know any better then. Like if I knew any better, I probably would have been like, hey guys, can we find a different way? This isn't cool. This isn't cool. But hey, everybody that went to get hired had to do it for the drug test. It was a lock of hair, man. Crazy stuff. Now, what other thoughts? Go ahead. Sorry.
On that, I think a lock of hair goes back further than urine in a cup. Like I think that only I don't know. I think you can look at stuff longer, like from like years ago in someone's lock of hair and their DNA. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. Like they said, it goes back as long as the hair or whatever, and they can. I don't know. That still seems like voodoo to me. I mean, can you really? Really? I mean, if you're like, hey, I did acid once or something, are they going to know because of your hair? I don't know. I'm not so sure that's the case. It sounds like voodoo to me.
All right, one more just pop culture reference. There's a movie, older movie, Titan AE. It's a 90s kind of half animation movie. And I'm going to spoil it because it's an older movie, but it's a good movie. In that movie, the Earth gets destroyed by this alien race that wants to, basically there's evil. And one of the humans, so humans don't have a home. And one of the humans made this, they call it the Titan, and it's basically the Ark. And in the Ark, it has the power to create a whole new world. And on it, it had this shelves of just, all the blood samples, DNA samples of all the animals, like dolphins, elephants, every animal in like a vial. And that's how they, were able to bring back like a new Earth. And so I'm wondering, like, what if, and that's just a weird one, like we talk about Noah's Ark and how we say, oh, he had, he physically put, two of every animal, two of every elephant, alligator, lion on the boat and they got along. What if he didn't? What if he just had their vials of DNA and they had some sort of power back then to like, and bring everything back? Like what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, like the whole idea of the synthetic womb, right? So you take the DNA, you whip up a couple new creatures, you put them in the little synthetic womb, and raise them till they're a little pup, and then you let them go go get them, Tigers. I mean, that could be that could be right. That's what they say about we got the DNA banks for not just what seeds and whatnot. They got seed banks. They got DNA for like extinct animals now. I mean, they're doing all that stuff, and that's a modern day Noah's Ark. That's for damn sure, right?
Yeah, let's do something like that. A modern day Noah's Ark.
Yeah, definitely, and pretty wild stuff. So regarding this, what do you think should happen? Let's say regarding the law, do you think there should be limitations here, or do you think it's just willy nilly like it is now?
That's kind of where I'm kind of stuck on that one. It is very gray area. It's not black and white. The line of, like I said, we're sending DNA in to them, so they have all that stuff. If you're like, hey, those things where they're like, send us your DNA and then we'll tell you, oh, you're like 20%, this, American or European, wherever you're from. You know what I'm talking about? The ancestries?
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Yeah, so like we're still like sending it in, like giving them that information. So I don't know. It's just weird. It's like giving them their fingerprints. So just don't do anything bad.
Yeah. There you go. That's the moral of this lesson, right? Don't do anything bad, because guess what? They're going to catch you. They're going to catch you, and that's the worst part of all this. Meaning that in some cases, I don't mean it's bad to catch the bad guys. I mean that when you become that invasive as a society, we talk about the surveillance state all the time, right? You end up turning over things that you don't want to know, and this is another weird thing regarding genetics too, and like these genetic testing things. They say that the dark side of this is you send it in, right? Let's say your whole family does it, and then you send yours in, and you're like nothing like the rest of your family. Right? This type of shit happens, right? So sometimes you learn things you don't want to know regarding this genetic stuff. So I don't know, man. It does seem a little bit like voodoo, and I think voodoo is a good way to put it in what Night Stalker described with the voodoo doll and the genetics and all the rest of that. Pretty wild stuff. What else you got for us, my man?
Oh, that was a good angle. Adding that in. I don't know. I know I'm never gonna do it. So whatever my family says I am, that's what I am. But yeah, just be careful when you're doing a DNA test or anything like that. Just kind of question it. The biggest question I have is, what do they do with the DNA after they do the test? I guess.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, or what do they do with 23andMe says that they destroy the DNA after they do the sampling or whatever, and send you the results. But
say,
yeah, do you really think they're doing that? Do you really think so? I'm not so sure. Yeah. That's a whole nother can of worms. We'll dig into that. I'm sure somebody's actually looked into that in the past and kind of dug that up. I appreciate the call, my man. You're the best. Matt in California, good friend of mine, good friend of Trouble Minds. Thanks for dipping in here and helping me out. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Good night.
You're the best, bro.
Good job.
Thank you. You too, man. Great call. So there you go. If you guys want to be part of the show tonight, we're talking about this DNA paparazzi and linking it to the Faceless Men. And, what do you think? 702-957-1037. Let's go back to Matt in Colorado if you're there. You there? Test 1, 2, my friend? You've been there for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me off of Bravo Charlie?
Loud and clear. Go right ahead, man. What else do you have regarding this? You seen Game of Thrones and you like the connection with Janice and sometimes I'm on fire. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's a little weak, Mike. I don't know. What do you think, my man?
Well, a bunch of thoughts. I have seen Game of Thrones, but don't do a spoiler. I saw all up until the very last season, and then I still have to watch the end of that. But yeah, and I remember the faces of the assassin part. But Matt in California, good call there. He's got a great name, by the way. It's the best name.
The best name. We've just determined the best name in the whole universe is Matt. Boom.
So, but yeah, and I was thinking quite a few of the same things, that he said, and I had initially called in and talked about those DNA sampling services for heritage and ancestry and everything. And later on, you read an article about that and them, arresting somebody because of supposedly publicly available data through that. I mean, give me a break. First of all, I can't go to those and get your DNA data. That's not publicly available. I mean, they had law enforcement, access to them or whatever. And I don't know how expensive it was to develop that technology and their computers and stuff, but I have to wonder, like, maybe they got some government grants, and along with those grants were maybe some conditions, like, you share data with us, you turn over the database. And it's all about databases. And I don't know about in Nevada, but in Colorado now, to get your driver's license, you have to do a fingerprint, actually like all fingers. And it's like, oh, okay, so why is that? Why do you need my fingerprint to identify me? I've been a citizen in this state for 50 years. You give me a bunch of driver's licenses. You know who I am. You have my documentation, my proof of address. You have my photograph. You don't need my fingerprint to identify me. No, that's not why they're collecting the fingerprint. The reason they're collecting the fingerprints, obviously, is to enlarge the size of the database of fingerprints of everyone in order to solve crimes and catch criminals. Okay, fine. Well, don't you think the same thing is happening with DNA? Don't you think the same thing is happening with facial recognition, right? Don't you think the same thing is starting to happen and going to continue to happen with, iris identification? And like Derek the Night Stalker said, well, what's the next level of this? What if this stuff can be spoofed or isn't positive, or they just want more? And then maybe they do something like a brain scan type thing, and they can register a particular frequency of your brain waves to ID you like that, like a fingerprint of your neural signature. And then, wow, what can they do with that? I mean, we're talking about what can they do with the DNA, but what if they had a fingerprint of your neural frequencies? Could they utilize that or exploit that? They already have those types of things to influence brainwaves. We've talked about that before. Or what if they identify certain people and characteristics of their brainwave brainwave, your ODD, your oppositional defiance disorder, or you have this particular, really strong God gene, or you have paranormal abilities or whatever. But I think that generally speaking, the whole point is more data, more control, like that, right?
Yeah, as always, right? Like as we keep saying, it's complicated, and the biometrics in particular is interesting because it is like it's a unique identifier. Meaning, people are using, like you described with the DMV, their thumbprints to like log into their phones now, right? But we know, we're not stupid. Like that thumbprint is actually being stored in a database on Apple or like Google or wherever the hell, right? Whoever the hell's actually. So now they have your thumbprint. But the problem becomes, right, when you start using biometrics for stuff like that, like you're describing, and the problematic future is, well, you only have so many fingers. We only have 2 eyeballs, right? Like once they start doing retina scans and facial recognition stuff to like log into your phones and whatnot, and this is all over the cloud everywhere, everybody's got everything about everybody, then, well, once you're hacked, like your identity is hacked, that's it. What are you going to do? Like, you're going to have to be a faceless man and swap on a new face. So the hackers just don't have like full access to your phone because now they've literally logged in with your face somewhere else, right? Whether it's just by tricking the AI or what's going on with this. But it's It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing, and that's not even talking about DNA yet. Like I always joke about, like you can actually get pennies from Google. Like actually, they have these survey rewards, and I always joke that if you send them a stool sample, they'll send you a few more pennies, right? Because that's kind of what's going on with this type of stuff. It's like they want to know everything about you, and they want to pay you pennies for it. It's ridiculous. But well, here we are, man. In this crazy world, as they say, right? May you live in interesting times, and I think it is interesting times indeed. And I think we live, our generation, sort of that Generation X in between is it's unique in that we lived in pre-digital world, and now we're like experiencing the full digital world. You can see both aspects of this, but I mean, the next generation won't even know what life was like before biometrics and computers and DNA scans, and I mean, shit, man, it's complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got a nephew, and then now I have grandnephews and nieces, and they've grown up with all this, and I'm like, I was making mud pies in the backyard when I was a kid. I was not, on a cell phone. I didn't have a tablet, and so that creates this comfort with it all, right? Like this level of conditioning, and to where they sort of accept everything. And in terms of the biometrics, it always gets all the new things that, quote, they want to put out there. It always gets sold. Okay, it's like advertising. We can make this much more convenient for you, like direct deposit and digital banking, and they're going to want to go to the digital currency, and it's, you don't have to go deposit your check. No, it'll just be deposited automatically. You don't have to open an envelope and write a check to pay a bill. No, you can get on online banking. It's so much more convenient for you. And then, with the phone apps and the thumbprint, is like, this is for your security. This is for your privacy and your security. And there's always a sales pitch, but the sales pitch and the pennies for your poop, right? That's all about collecting data and building the database. And like you said, if they catch the criminals and the bad guys, well, great, and that is great, and it sounds great, and yoo-hoo, clap your hands, but that's not the full story, and there's other parts and aspects of how that can be utilized, misused, abused, the more nefarious side of things, right? And that's what people that they don't consider it's a sales pitch, they don't really ever contemplate that. And then once they've done the sales pitch and people bought into it and opt into it, I'm sure if you go to these, DNA research sites, that when you send them the stuff, there's probably some fine print that says, you're some privacy policy crap where you're turning this stuff over. And it's fine and well for them to say they destroyed the DNA, but they don't need the DNA because, once it's scanned, it's all computerized. They have it all mapped out. So at that point, it's a computer file. That's all they need. They don't need the actual physical DNA. I did want to add, you were asking Matt in California about the sort of the Derek Knight Stalker with the voodoo and the DNA and the physical DNA.
Sure, and perfect. What's your take on that? Because I'm fascinated by it. Like Matt said, it's not my bag either, but pop culture references would suggest it's a thing. So what do you know about it, my man?
Well, you and I think, discussed one time, or I did in Discord chat, that I do a thing called psychometry. I discovered in my early 20s. I was pretty good at it, and that's where you can read energy off an object. Usually by holding it in your hand or to your forehead. Usually works better with metal, but so somebody's personal object, like their car keys or a ring or jewelry or whatever, and have been very successful with that. And so from my personal experience, I would say I know that's real and true and works. Could I do it with, a lock of hair or a toenail? Yeah. and probably even better. So in terms of that, I think having the actual DNA, there is a connection there. That is that sort of voodoo connection or way to make a connection with someone. And that even happens just talking on the internet. It happens with the people that are in the Discord chat, or years ago in IRC chat. So you can connect with people through the internet. Well, if you've got a lock of hair or you've got DNA, these connections, more like a psychic connection or spiritual connection, can be made. I don't know how that can be exploited technologically speaking, but who knows? But I think there is something there, in terms of, I don't practice magic or anything like that, but I think that's why back in the day with casting spells and stuff, they wanted a lock of hair. They wanted, a piece of the person, because it helped them establish a direct connection to them. So if they've got all these computer files and everything like that, and profiles or whatever, that's great. But if they get the DNA, right, they've got more of that direct connection.
Okay, that makes some sense. And so it's a direct target. It's not so like on the 800 block of 4th Street, right? Like kind of trying to narrow down the individual somewhere around there. It's like an actual direct sort of link to that particular person. Matt in California says it's called binding. Binding. There you go.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, and if you take I lost my train of thought. But yeah, if you take that binding and what I was saying about what if they can like scan your brain, and maybe when they're doing the retinal scan, there's some other technology in there that they are scanning your brainwave frequency, and maybe your mind brain has some kind of fingerprint to it. And then what if you combine the two of those, right? And so they've got like your brain frequency and that fingerprint, and they've got your DNA to bind with. And then we know all about the broadcasting electromagnetic things and psychotronic weaponry from a distance, and maybe they combine all that somehow for further levels of technological mind control. I'm just kind of going down a rabbit hole there.
Yeah, I don't know, and that becomes that's interestingly, there's a dystopia that's not far out that even some of the best prognosticators can't really recognize. We can't put our finger on what it is yet. But right at some point, like I said, with biometrics, you're going to have to say, all right, look, we can't use your thumbs or your fingers anymore, your fingerprints. It's all been compromised. Everything's been hacked, right? Your eyeball scans, your facial recognition, all that stuff is in, like, let's say the mafia's database or whatever, right? Like the most, let's say the let's say that the Martians got it. Okay, let's just say that. That's probably the best way to put it. And then so there's nothing we can use personally to even identify ourselves anymore. So what becomes the next thing, all right? If you want to talk in terms of like, chipping people or things like this, right? Well, there's your mark of the beast, right? There's your, I don't know, there's something on the horizon here that once everything becomes compromised and hacked regarding DNA and facial recognition and retina scans and this type of stuff, it's coming fast. What do you use then? And I think the question would be, or the answer is probably, your dystopian answer is a chip or some kind of identifiable, scannable hardware, right? That you actually not just wear, but maybe it gets implanted in your body. I don't know. And so maybe you have to change that every 6 months, right? Because everything gets hacked constantly with quantum computers and the way that the world is heading. I don't know, dude. It's the future is bright, but also the future is a little bit terrifying in that, they know you're going to have a bellyache before you have it type stuff,
Right. About those chips, I obviously read out of Revelations and stuff, but I saw, gosh, I don't know how long ago this was. And it seems like science fiction and whatever, and who would actually take a a chip, an implant. But I don't know how many years ago. It was probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And I saw a news story where there was actually this bar, a bar, restaurant, nightclub place, a really uptown place in Europe. And they were doing chips that these, maybe 3 times the size of a grain of rice. They were doing these implants up people's wrist a little bit under the skin, and then they had a scanner. So I think it was like a members only type deal. And like to get into the club, you had to have a chip under your skin implanted. And he'd come in and they would scan it. Okay, you're a member. Come on in. And people were taking these things. They're putting microchips surgically implanted under their skin to get into a nightclub. I'm like, are you kidding me? You didn't read your good book? I mean, that's the mark of the beast we're talking about, right? And yeah, and then can those be hacked? Can those be duplicated? Yeah. Oh, so you got to get a new one every 6 months, and then they upgrade them and they put in new capabilities that they have. Yeah, it starts to get crazy. And I think you're right. Even the best of us prognosticators are having great difficulty keeping up even with wild conjectures and troubled minds of, where is this going? But I think, 2 things are true. It is going somewhere, and it is going somewhere fast.
That's a fact. That's a fact, Jack. I mean, Matt in Colorado. What's up, Matt? I appreciate it. Thanks for being patient and giving us additional thoughts here. Follow Matt, his book down below. Is that the only book you ever wrote, my friend? I know it's a giant volume and it was supposed to be broken into 10 books or something, but you're working on some other stuff by chance?
Well, I am working on one. I can't talk about the nature of the title yet. When it comes out, I'll talk about it on your show. But I wrote another book, a handbook to harmonious relationships. So it's kind of psychology and communication in romantic relationships. I wrote another one about healing the gut. It had a lot to do with the effects of the GMOs. So it's a health-related book. So I've written some other books. People check me out on Smashwords or Amazon's. They can see, other titles by this author.
Gotcha. Okay. And you can find that link in the description down below for the one book that we're always talking about. I think there are still coupon codes left. Did you check on that? I know that I got one, so you said there was 50, so there's 49 left, I hope. There's less than that.
Well, I know somebody got one yesterday. I know some other people did. I didn't check on it today, but I did think about it.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, it's no hurry. I'm just curious if you checked. Just curious of the traction. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, even if people go to Smashwords and get the link to my book for free, even on Smashword, it'll have other books by this author. One of which I wrote was Strengthening the Immune System, and I wrote it like in April of 2020 to try to help people deal with COVID. That was, long before a vaccine and stuff. So, there's other stuff people could check out.
Absolutely. All right, cool. Check it out. Links in the description down below. Give Matt some love here. Thanks for being enthusiastic about the show. Thanks for stretching your mind with us and trying to find what the future brings. Appreciate it very much. Looking to hear from you guys. What do you think? We're still talking about the faceless God of many faces and the DNA paparazzi. How does this all come together, or does it not? And I think that's part of the weirdness of this is some of these conversations do come together quite easily, but some it's difficult to tell what the future may bring regarding this. Maybe there is like a, sort of a skin scrape future where you have to everything's been hacked. Let's say, 50 years from now, everybody's got quantum computers in their basement and they're hacking the shit out of everybody else. And so we have to have a real time DNA scrape from your finger or something, right? Or maybe you got to lick something. There you go. Now we're talking. You got to lick something to get in the bank door, right? And I mean, this is weird because we don't know what's actually coming, and that's why we talk about this stuff. You tell me. Love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037, 702-957-1037. I appreciate you guys hanging out and adding to this. What's up? Yeah, great call, Matt. And Matt, what's up? Matt in California says, in the mark of the beast, we all already have 2 chips, one in your phone and one in your wallet. And Night Stalker says, or what happens when they have all our data and behavior with social media combined with all our DNA? What can they learn about our talents or abilities or behavior, etc., if thousands of algorithms, and all the rest of that? And I agree, and that's the most dangerous thing about all this is, like I said, they're going to know that you're going to have a bellyache before you have a bellyache because they know all the things about you, and then you just posted I'm about to eat a Mexican pizza from Taco Bell. And they're like, Mike, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, your CIA agent is watching. They're like, don't do it, Mike. Don't do it. And then you do it. And they're like, we knew it. Mike had a bellyache, which I don't recommend you eat that crap anyway. But just a funny thing because making a joke about Mexican pizzas in my family because we used to eat them when we were teenagers at Taco Bell. And they're horrific. I don't know why we ever ate them. But they just came back and they said that they're selling like 2,000% of them from the last time they sold them. So that's why I bring up the Mexican pizza. Funny joke. Funny inside joke there. Anyway, what do you guys think? 702-957-1037. Daryl in New York, are you there?
Hey, Mike. Great show. Very, very interesting stuff, especially what you just said. Wait, I was thinking about it. Maybe like they have everything to collect your data, and then you're just going to have to leave a sperm specimen to prove it's really you. Because that's always regenerating. Anyway, I was just thinking, I have 2 other thoughts, though. I was going to mention, doesn't it make what is it called? Cryonics, where they cut your head off when you die, and they wait till there's a cure for your, illness, and then they bring you back to life by putting you on, I don't know what they do. Remember that? There was a baseball player that had that done. Cal Ripken, was it? I can't remember who it was. Anyway.
Maybe I can't remember, but yeah, Cal Ripken sounds right.
I think it was him. I'm not sure, but anyway, it makes it look like kindergarten next to the DNA stuff, And there was something I wanted to mention. Robert Bigelow. I think he would be interested in this because he was trying to find like ETs or some kind of paranormal thing to communicate with his son, who had been I can't remember what he had died from. Maybe it was an accident or something. And he was so heartbroken that he spent all that money on that Skinwalker Ranch to try to find a way to communicate with his son. He was so heartbroken. I'm sure if he could clone his son, he probably would have, or maybe he already did. I don't know. But I think that's maybe the good part of it. Maybe you could bring back your loved ones, or the unjust, if they were unjustly killed before their time. You can revive them and reincarnate them. And, it's possible. You wouldn't, you'd have the same memory, basically, if you had your DNA,
Yeah, exactly.
It's possible. So anyway, that could be the good part of it all.
Yeah, I mean, as always, a double-headed sword. Yeah, what's up, Jay? I was going to say, if you're on the air, if you didn't know you were here, if you want to.
I heard it beep.
Okay, all right. Beep. Oh, we got a beep now?
It gives you a little, it does a little beep when you change the thing.
Gotcha.
On the iPhone. Anywho, has nobody seen Pet Sematary?
Yeah, I've seen it a long time ago.
Well, I mean, you just, okay, so your loved one passes on and we'll just make you back. I mean, isn't that, how could this go wrong? Is the way that I look at that, you're playing with the devil, right? I mean, the mark of the beast, all of that, it's biblical stuff, I think of it that way sometimes, that, when we're doing all these things with our DNA and our tracking and all that stuff. I mean, that was the fire and brimstone thing. When I was like 10 years old, the guy at the Church of God was slamming on the pulpit, that this is what they're doing to you. Have we been predicting this forever? If we look through movies and comic books and all that, the stuff that we bring up from time to time, I really think that, at what point do you're afraid to, if a cigarette butt on a construction site? Oh my God, they could have every person there, but what good would that person be? Oh, he'd be a likely person to go to prison if we need to assassinate someone, like you were saying in the Game of Thrones thing there that I haven't seen yet, but it makes sense, you know? You could just give that faceless person the face and the DNA of anyone you wanted. Oh, this guy was behind on his taxes 5 or 6 times, you know, whatever. That's the guy that gets to go to prison for the murder.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Frame him.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So I'm waiting for, and I hate to say this, right? But I think at some point in the near future, we will have a scandal where somebody has been framed for a crime and it comes out that they didn't actually do this thing. And it's a DNA evidence crime, right? So because, of course, technology is becoming more and more easy to replicate DNA. And again, like I said, even for the layman, like even for probably a few $1,000 you could do this. So if you think that these political, again, like the politics has, again, $1 trillion budgets on the line for an election, who controls those $1 trillion budgets, right? So if you think that like they're not going to stoop to the levels of this type of stuff, it's coming. It's definitely coming, right? I mean, people do illegal shit every day in the name of politics. So, and not just politics, right? Any kind of, crime or money or any of these other things, right? But that's the thing. So I don't know, man. I'm with you. This sort of leads to a biblical space, and in not a good way. Deals with the devil is what we're talking about here. Pretty crazy stuff.
Well, I mean, like if you look at the end of a job, you know, the owner of the place wants to fire the general contractor and just, you know, I'll hire you to come over on Saturdays or, you know, after work or something like that and give you $100. And instead of paying that guy that whatever he's charging for your, you know, you get paid one thing, he gets charged another thing. So I'll just pay you your hourly wage plus a little bit more to come and work for me off the books with that other guy. I mean, look at all of those simple things. You know, that happen, you know, I'll pay you $75 to edit my kid's YouTube video, you know, it's dumb, little teeny tiny things that we do. I mean, everyone's doing something illegal. You threw a cigarette butt on the ground. We get your face now. It's a $300 fine for littering in New York City. They're going to mail you a ticket. We know it was you.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You did the me in 21 thing.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that, the funny part about that whole biometrics, right? They got the cameras on the whatnot. People wear like those luchador masks and drive around like maniacs, and they get those tickets in the mail. They're like, "Prove that was me." Like you can't, right? But what happens when you gotta lick the thing to start the car? Which is funny. I say that only half in jest. But Craig's in the chat over here says, if the bank manager said lick this or you can't come in, I will stay outside.
Good thing I got cash in my safe, I guess.
And I'm only half joking. You know what I mean? It's like, come on now. What's up, Believe? I see there in the chat. I get it regarding Alex Jones, but easy on the people that there's no reason to like tell people to wake up. I just don't like the term. So let's be nice. Let's be nice to each other is basically what I'm trying to say. So I see you in the chat. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for hanging out. And your joke on the Mexican pizza is hilarious. Believe says that they are liars at Taco Bell. They said they didn't have Mexican pizzas at the location I went to. I read that apparently Taco Bell's out of Mexican pizzas.
They're selling out so fast. I have to admit that I've gone to my Taco Bell and they've been out.
There you go.
But if you do get one, that hot sauce from Area 51 on top of them that was supposed to be a souvenir gets dumped all over it.
Oh, nice. All right. There you go. There's probably
and that shit's hot.
That's hot. Yeah, I sent Jay a little bottle of hot sauce. He got the mated pair that went to Matt in California. There you go. Matt picked the green one, and Jay got the red one, and it's hot. Hey, I got some hot sauce from Area 51 guys. You can buy some hot sauce out there, or you can get it around their website. But it was special because I drove there myself and picked it myself. And anyway, so okay, what else you got, my friend? What else you got, Jay? And we got Jennifer on the line behind you. So what else you got, my friend?
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, even with that artist, that simple thing is, where does that money come from? I mean, a 3D printer, the algorithms and stuff like that she had to make. I mean, yeah, she was a PhD at school, but that stuff's not free. You know, I mean, you're talking about a really good computer. You're talking about some, pretty good lab equipment and a pretty awesome 3D printer. Where'd she get all that money as a college student? I remember when I was in college, I was lucky. We were given plasma for blood, beer money. I don't understand where all these people get all this money to do these crazy things that they do.
Once you break out of the normie, let's say financial cycle, all things become possible. And that's why it's so difficult to break out of the normie financial cycle, my friend. They don't want everybody to have all things possible. It's part of the game.
Yeah, I guess yeah, absolutely. Nail on that, I suppose.
Or close enough. Close enough. You're the best. You're the best. You got a J-Tro for us? You can hang on for a little bit?
Yeah, I will. I'd love to listen to what Jennifer has to say, actually.
Okay.
And yeah.
Fantastic. Jay in New York, good friend of mine, good friend of the show. Good to have you back. Stay right there. We'll get back to you in just a moment. Let's go to Jennifer in Missouri. What's up? You're on Troubled Minds. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, not too bad.
Right on. Go right ahead. What do you think? What about this? I know you're a Game of Thrones fan. What about the DNA paparazzi? Take it wherever you want to take it.
Okay. Well, as far as Game of Thrones goes, we don't know how the Faceless Men take the faces. We just know it's a religious order and that somehow they do it. However, in the books, we have a quote from Melisandre, who performs the same type of ritual between Mance Rayder and the Lord of Bones. And the quote is, it says, "The bones help," said Melisandre, "the bones remember. The strongest glamours are built of such things. A dead man's boots, a hunk of hair, a bag of finger bones. With whispered words and prayers, a man's shadow can be drawn forth from such and draped about another like a cloak. The wearer's essence does not change, only his seeing." So obviously, it does point that in the realm of magic, in that world, the DNA plays a huge part, same as in the real world. Same as like in our world, voodoo and classic witchcraft, as we've already talked about, requires the blood or the hair to perform the ritual because it contains the magnetic essence of the individual. The unique frequency of that essence of that soul as it put through, because it's all unique for every individual, I'm sure. And so it's a direct connection across any distance. Somehow it's like it links through. Now, in the Game of Thrones, the DNA magic, it provides a cloak and not a clone. However, in our understanding of cloning, though, DNA, it could still be said that the clone is not actually it's not the person. It's a representation of the person, that it's been cloned from. So it's a cloak in and of itself, a shroud of the original person when we think about cloning itself. Because, we know, like, if I say, this is a clone of me, it's not actually me. Even though it's me, it's not. And I do kind of think that it is possible that they don't have to, they can do it in a much more organized way. It doesn't have to be just like they pick up a spoon or, or something that you've eaten off of or something. I think they don't have to dig through your trash. I think that there's a much more organized, if there was a secret order that was utilizing some of the masses' DNA or from certain markers in their DNA that maybe raise an eyebrow or cause them to have interest, or they may have use for it later perhaps, that they harvest that when you go for any normal procedure, perhaps at the doctor's office or anything like that. Not that there's anything important with that, I'm just saying that they could easily bank everybody's DNA without much effort if it was going to, and I think that individuals themselves don't have the power to do, if they were going to do witchcraft, and you can do that with just an image of a person, a picture is enough. It doesn't matter, but I was just saying, But I think that, even if they do try to use people's DNA or to specifically make a clone of the individual to perform certain activities, maybe like that's it wouldn't have to be so so secretive. I think it'd be that they've obviously already taken it and have it in a bank somewhere, I would assume.
Yeah,
like a library of people.
Yeah, you would expect so, and I think that's where we're headed there anyway, and that's the weirdest part about it. Just real quick, Matt in Colorado, your camera's on in case you didn't notice. We didn't get any DNA bits going on over there, so just you're safe, but your camera is on, so just to let you know. But okay, so Jen, I think that's the craziest part. Now speaking in terms of like voodoo or witchcraft and things like this, what do you know about that same sort of thing like you were just describing in further terms? So a lock of hair means what, and how's that different in, let's say, conjuring, or we made the joke earlier about a voodoo doll with toenails or things like this? Is there a distinction there, or is it a binding, like Matt said, in terms of it kind of doesn't matter? There are other ways to do this. Like I've heard cutting a little piece of somebody's clothing or things like this. I don't know. I don't know a lot about it, and you may not either. I'm just what else you got regarding that particular thing?
In witchcraft and voodoo, in anything, it's not even, you don't even have to classify it as that. If you want to do something from a distance, and this is like old, practice, that you need anything related to that person. It can be a possession of theirs. It can be a piece of, a piece of their clothing. I mean, those are all distant things. Something they've touched, something they've drank from. You could use anything like that it sounds silly, doesn't it? But the thing is that it's the intent behind it. And sometimes I don't think it's even intentional, but if you even have the more personal things, something closer to the body or from the body, like spit or blood or urine or anything like that, fingernail clippings of their hair, things like that. You can get that from a brush or a comb, is what's oftentimes mentioned. Even just a photograph of the individual, which is something that I think we all should be concerned about in the modern day with the way that the internet is. And the idea that people are afraid of having their photos taken is because they can take that photo and there's concern that should they look at it with the evil eye, because that's something that can happen too. It's very simple. It's like how a curse can be passed from one to another, or how you can take possession of another person and make them do something that they didn't intend to do. Or maybe they just stumble a little bit. But it's because it's something that that object, even if it's just a belonging of that person, because it becomes a representation of that person. People typically put a lot of energy into their belongings and things like that. They consider them to be an extension of themselves. And so they think that, like if you take clothing, for example, a lot of times people think that when they put on their clothing, it's an expression of who they are. So that's why there's a power in it. And there's a power in all of those things. The same thing with photographs. Even if they're not taken, with your knowing about it and things like that. But when you get something very close to the body, like fingernail clippings, urine or blood or spit or any of those things, there's a lot more power in that because it actually has the essence of the person directly in the thing. In fact, in a lot of old witchcraft, they have these things called like witches' bottles, and people think that it's like a way for protection or this and that. But in fact, what I think it is that when somebody throws a curse at someone, and you've created this, they take a jar, and you can put urine, hair, anything of the person into that jar. And the person cursing that individual, the curse goes to that jar and not to the person. So they may put these jars underneath their porch, or they may put them up in their attic. And when the curse comes, it's like a type of spirit that's been cast upon a person. It doesn't go to the actual individual. It's a diversion, kind of like a scarecrow of sorts. But the spirit thinks it's that individual because it contains the essence of them. And so it goes to that jar, and that's the idea behind that. And you can see that kind of stuff within magic itself. The idea is always that it has to be representational because you don't want to leave a mark. And you don't want it to be obvious who's done it. And only another witch, ideally, or like another sorcerer or a seer of some kind, knows who sent the first curse, or who sent it here or there, or who was the original deliverer of it, and how to send it back. Even in Native American culture, they had these things called the pains. Literally, the translation is the pains. And it's these elemental energies that a shaman uses to cast a curse upon another person. And they send these out, and they're almost like splinters, and they fly through the air, so to speak, and they fly into the individual that's intended for it to hit. And if it is extracted by another shaman, usually the person is supposedly going to fall very ill or even pass away. But if a priest or a shaman or some kind of witch doctor can retrieve the pains fly immediately back to the priest that sent it, back to the shaman that sent it, and usually killing them. So they will create a diversion of themselves, for example, so that it doesn't actually hit them, but it hits the diversion that looks like themselves. So like in mojo bags and things like that, a lot of times they will take the essence of animals, or it depends on what they want it for. It's the whole thing of witchcraft is very involved, but on a basic level, if they have the DNA of all the people on the planet, and at this point their images as well, you can perform any kind of ritual you wanted on the masses and be working that ritual on a continual basis. And the person being unawares, which is the worst of all, will assume that the trouble is coming to them because of something they've done or because of some kind of normal process in life. But in fact, they have something upon them. They have the evil eye on them. And if in removing the evil eye, you have to be aware that it's been cast upon you to begin with. And a lot of times people don't even think that they're under any kind of curse. They just assume that they've had a lot of bad luck or they're unlucky. But it could very well be that it's some kind of magic being put upon them. But yeah, so they use that stuff because it contains the physical body of the person and all those little pieces and bits and parts. But even an object owned by the person, if someone gets possession of it, and even just gloats in a negative way upon it, can cause trouble for another person. And that's why there's a lot of caution about it, and why there's a lot of superstition. If people who believe in that, there's a lot of superstition about how you can avoid such things, how you can keep it from bothering you or causing you trouble. And typically that takes a great deal of work, I think, but it's worth doing if you're concerned about it. Yeah, because people who believe in this are very real.
Yeah, exactly. That it is why I joke about it, but I do broadcast from a circle of salt, by the way. Yeah, it's mostly because of the Cheetos I'm eating. It leaves a. Just kidding. but okay, and so real quick, what we got you on to? What about those Mexican pizzas? Do you think those are voodoo?
I don't know. Voodoo pizza. I guess it could be, but. Yeah, I don't know. I think the whole thing's very interesting. It does concern me. I've always thought it was strange how they take the sampling of blood from every single infant that's ever born. I don't want to go into it, but it's very, and that's for important reasons. And nobody should steer clear of that. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying it is interesting that they do have, they literally have us. Something does, and has great, in a way, not that we're at the mercy of it, because that's not the case, because they are, we shouldn't, I'm not saying we should all be practicing the magic or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But I think I'm going to leave it. Never mind.
Okay, that's fine. I completely understand. Jennifer, always the best. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for sharing anything else. Anything else you got before I kick you out of here?
I don't know what else there could be. What else do you think there's anything else?
No, I'm not. I'm not doing it that way. I'm not twisting your arm here. Just in case you had another idea. You're pretty good about taking notes and coming with a few ideas. So just wanted to not cut you short if you had something else to add. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
I guess we'll listen into this.
That's fine. I appreciate it very much. Jennifer in Missouri, look out. She's got a YouTube channel. Check it out. Link is in the description down below. Every bit as brilliant as she sounds. Go give her a follow and let's inspire her to do more work. You got that channel pumping yet, Jen? Back on the horse?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's all these things that get in the way, but when I do it, I'm going to do it. Like when I actually, if you see another video pop up, it means there's gonna be another one in like 3 days. Like I'm not gonna start doing it unless I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
So I'm waiting for that moment.
Okay, cool. We're also waiting. We are waiting for that moment as well. So good thoughts for Jen and the YouTube channel, and good health and all the rest of stuff going forward. And I appreciate you calling, and thanks for spending your time with us. Please give her a follow. Links in the description down below. It says follow Jennifer here, and let's inspire her to do more fantastic work. Let's go to real quick before we do Night Stalker ads from last month. Fans horrified as Kim Kardashian shares voodoo plans for Marilyn Monroe locks she was gifted before Met Gala. Kim Kardashian plans to do some crazy voodoo shit with her historic gift. Oh God. Why? Okay, here it is. There we go. There's Night Stalker pulling out from his collection of links. There it is. I'll share the link as well so you guys can see it. But crazy stuff. I have no idea what's going on here, other than let's hope Kim Kardashian is not doing crazy voodoo shit with her Marilyn Monroe locks. That's okay. Grabbing this link, and I'm going to share it over on Rockfin. And let's go back to Jay in New York. You're on Troubled Minds. Go right ahead, my friend. Let's wrap this sucker up. If you're there. Wait, did I mute you? No, I didn't mute you. All right. Just making sure.
I muted myself.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Jay in New York. Welcome back. What's up, bro? What are your thoughts there?
I had a girlfriend when I was tenant bar in Cincinnati, like eons ago. And when people used to make her really mad, she would write their name down on a piece of paper and put it in like palm oil with like banana leaves and burn it, because she was mad. She didn't want to carry around that negative energy about her. That was one of the things that Jennifer kind of spurred a memory of, that just in all kinds of religion, there's those little things where you want to keep that bad voodoo away from you. You know, don't give the people your DNA. Don't spit on the sidewalk. You know?
Yeah, well, first off, don't spit on the sidewalk because it's disgusting, guys. Would you stop? Stop.
Yeah, it's gross.
It's gross. It's gross. That's the first thing.
There's
The
stuff
second
like that
thing
stuff,
is-
and then I walk in my living room and there's like spit on the bottom. I might as well step in dog poo.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that. Totally don't do that.
Wash my shoes.
Yeah, you know what I hated about playing baseball too is everybody's just spitting all over the field. I'm like, what are you guys doing, man? I got to slide into second base at some point. You guys are just spitting all over the dirt. That's disgusting. Sure enough,
yeah,
I got to go slide into second base, and the second baseman's just spitting up a storm over there. Gross, guys. Come on, stop spitting. Okay, anyway, but yeah. I mean, it is. It's a thing. And so, like, you know, if we're talking about a lock of hair, a little bit of spit, or something like this, urine, like Jennifer was saying there, like something. That binding, like Matt was talking about, like the DNA and then the facial recognition. Well, just like Jennifer described, they could, if you believe in rituals, well, that gives them enough of whatever they need to do, whatever the hell they want, doesn't it?
Now they got a whole army of people sitting in some room who doing a little ritual to keep us paying our taxes and paying our health insurance.
It's like the I don't know if you heard last night's show. It's like the seven towers of Satan hidden scattered across the east, with monks constantly chanting evil incantations 24 hours a day to bring evil upon the land. Well, it's that's the IRS.
Indeed. Or the county tax commissioner.
Exactly right.
He and I are in a huge argument right now.
Oh, I'll bet.
It's fine now.
Win, Jay, win.
Sorry.
We're
right. Digressing.
That's all right. So what else you got? And we'll wrap this up.
I'm sorry. I'm keeping you.
No, you're fine.
No,
we got time for you if you got time for us. Go right ahead, sir.
I really think that it's, you know, we're getting too big for our britches, and this is going to fall down, you know, all this stuff. At some point, the people are going to be like, I'm not paying for the DNA research. You know, they don't cut your hair. When I worked at Victoria's Secret, they actually took the little mower thing and they did a 1-inch spot to send off. It was really funny because, like, all the party animals and stuff like that were going in there with buzzed hair to get their thing done. 30 days, you go and get all your hair shaved off, and then you'd go in for your drug test.
Oh, there you go. That game in the system. The famous Liam Martin of Rohan says the IRS stands for Insidious Ritual Service. There you go. No need to talk about taxes. We'll digress for hours about that. But okay, so what else you got, my friend, regarding all the rest of this DNA stuff?
I just think that it's a really slippery slope, Mike. I mean, kind of like Derek was saying there, they're going to take your DNA and make it into the organs or whatever, the skin for the robot, Are they just collecting it so they got more of it? I don't know. The whole thing seems like nothing good could come from it, really, other than catching the guy who was, the murderer and stuff like that, and terrorizing people in parks and all those kind of things. It's like, we got his DNA. It's everywhere, but we can't figure it out. Oh, hey, look, there's a match on 21andMe or whatever those little sites are.
27andThe. What's funny, real quick about that too, regarding that catching the killer. I say from time to time in the old days regarding death threats, and I'm going to digress here for just a sec. But in the old days, when it wasn't a Twitter death threat. It wasn't like somebody saying, a 12-year-old in a basement saying, I'm going to kill you. It was somebody would call you on the phone and say, I'm going to murder you, right? And that guy did that. That Golden State Killer used to do that to his victims. He'd break into their house and then kind of taunt them and then call and say that, next time I come, I'm going to kill you. And one in particular, because they had very few eyewitness accounts that actually spoke with this guy on the phone. They asked one of the guys, well, what happened when he called you? And he says, well, I picked up the phone and they recorded this actually. And the guy was like, I'm going to kill you. This stupid, scary voice. And the guy said, well, you're welcome to try. And then he hung up the phone. That's how death threats used to go down. Now it's like, they sent a Twitter death threat. Everybody call the FBI.
Bring it. Wrong house, asshole.
Exactly. Wrong house, asshole. Yeah, I mean, that's where that story came from when I say that from time to time. When I say the old school way of dealing with death threats was like, oh, well, that's interesting. That doesn't change anything else about the world around me. You're welcome to try. Click, and then you hang up, and then there you go. But that's where that story came from. Some guy actually talked to the Golden State Killer years and years ago, and that's how the conversation went. And they've got a recording of his voice actually saying, I'm going to kill you. If you check the case files, it's all there. I thought it was pretty fascinating.
That's awesome.
Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. The guy's like, nope.
And they had to use the Ancestry.com to catch the guy?
Yeah, exactly. After this was like the late 60s and 70s, late 60s, early 70s, I think, when he was terrorizing all over all over California. He was doing the Bay Area, Bakersfield, Los Angeles. He was all over the damn place. And he traveling. He was smart. So he was an ex-cop, this guy. So he knew sort of how their investigative habits would happen. And even so, they say that he hopped on a bike. So he would bring a bike to the crime scene. He would commit the crime, and then he would hop on a bike and leave, ride the bike quietly in the dark, and then go to his car a couple miles away, and then get in the car and drive away from there. So this dude was
twisted.
A sick fuck. This dude was a sick fuck. So if this is indeed the guy, well, I'm glad they got him. But again, back to the idea of DNA databases and having everything on us all the time. Yeah,
you're sending me a $350 ticket because I spit my chewing gum out or flicked my cigarette before going into a job interview.
Yeah. You never know.
Well, I mean, the joke, who was it? Sylvester Stallone or something like that, couldn't get the idea right with the seashells, Demolition Man or something like that. So he would just curse right before he had to go take a poo because it would give him a paper ticket to spit out so he could...
he could do the business. I never saw that. That sounds funny though. That sounds pretty funny.
It was one of those campy 80s, the campy 80s action films that always had the really poor humor that was actually kind of funny.
Hey, man, dick and fart jokes never get old. They never get old. They never get old. All right, so it looks like we got one more. We got last individual. Can you hang out a little bit more? We got Tam Bam on the line. You okay to hang, Jay?
I'll definitely listen to what Tam Bam has to say any day of the week.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll be right back with Jay in New York. Let's go to Tam Bam in South Africa. What's up? You're on Troubled Minds. How are you tonight?
Hello.
Good evening. And speaking of dick and fart jokes, ladies and gentlemen, Tam Bam from South Africa. What's going on?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing okay. Just having fun, sipping some whiskey, talking about weird shit by dark of night. It's hard for me to complain. What do you think about all this DNA stuff? What's going on with this?
I think it's weird. I think it's very scary. And there's actually fuck all we can do about it. Because our DNA is everywhere. And so if we can't do anything about it, so for me, it's like, what is the greater picture here? What is the nefarious agenda of collecting everyone's personal data? And for me, one of the things I can come up with immediately is that there will always be a fight over the elite versus the common, right? And the elite call the common people useless eaters or useless consumers. And so a lot of people have been talking about that negative blood is the more of a purer bloodline or something like that, and the positive blood type is more of the monkey gene or the monkey blood, right? So if you collect everyone's DNA, and according to the elite, they can pretty much, and they have this thing called the great culling. I don't know if you've heard about this. I mean, I'm sure you have.
Yes.
The great culling.
Please be careful how you approach this. Don't get us taken off of YouTube. Thank you.
Sherbert. Okay. Okay. So what if they decide to take one side of the blood type and decide to eliminate it for the greater purpose of decreasing the population? Did I say that okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's speaking in terms of what ifs. What if?
What ifs? Yes, it's definitely
what if in an alternate universe? Okay, go right ahead.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
So in an alternate universe, in a parallel dimension, on another planet, where these beings exist, what if they decide to take the one side of the spectrum of blood type and delete it and keep the purer side alive? So that was my thought. Because what else could it be? What would be the greater agenda here?
Yeah, well, I think with DNA there can be a lot of agendas, and not to be lost on this. Like I said, it is troubled minds. So we talk about the troubling aspects of life and society and all the rest of this. But there are some good things, right? Like genetic diseases and being able to sniff that stuff out, or kind of head them off at the pass. There's a particular thing with breast cancer and people predisposed, and there's a lot of stuff like that can be good. All right, but also with both sides of a double-edged sword, good can come quite a lot of bad. It can. I think that's the worst part about is in a society we live in where where it doesn't seem like trustworthiness and honesty is rewarded, right? You're rewarded for skipping ahead in line, for being a bully. You're rewarded for lying and cheating and stealing, and and that's part of the problem. That's part of what's going on with the world we live in. So when you deal with all that and see it around us all the time, it makes our spider sense tingle when we talk about collecting DNA en masse, right? So yeah, you got to throw that out there, I guess.
No, for sure. And I was just thinking, okay, but that's obvious. I was just thinking of the greater picture, the end result. What could it be? And that's what I could come up with. Because, what else could it be? We know the big C word. I mean, I can't say it online now. You've really stopped my mouth.
Well, no, I haven't.
Oh my
What are you
God.
talking about? We could kill the YouTube stream and you could say whatever you want on Rockfin.
No, I don't want to. The YouTubers are awesome.
Okay, all right. Yeah, all right, YouTube. Anyway.
But you know what I want to say?
Go ahead.
Do you know what I mean, though?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. It becomes back to eugenics is what it comes back to, right? That same idea of, even in terms of like CRISPR, we talk about that same stuff. Gene modifying things is we're pre-choosing what are the best traits, and then we're pre-deciding what a quality of life is as a human being. And in those terms, we're going to be terminating things before life becomes, you see. So see how I did that?
Correct.
But that it becomes problematic, very problematic, because then you have academics sitting together in this study with leather couches and leather bound books and smoking the nicest whatever stuff you can smoke that money can buy, and deciding those things for us. And no. That's where I get a little irritated. That's where I get irritated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that is a kind of it's not a far off idea. That's the problem. It's really not, because the people who own the most data of the entire planet are the people who run the world. That's the blood banks I don't think are there for blood donation. I mean, that does serve a very good purpose, obviously helping a lot of people, but also a nefarious purpose. We got the seed banks. There's seeds that have been out of commission for a very long time that could really help the world, but they keep it in the seed bank. For what?
For what?
I know.
When they've destroyed all the rest of the seeds and we're like, wow, how did we get here? You know how we got here. Come on, don't ask dumb questions. Not you, them. Come on, they know why they're doing this. They know. And we know why they're doing this. Come on. This is again one of those things like Noah's Ark, like Matt in California was talking about. Sort of that same idea, right? Yeah. They're waiting for the Great Flood. And in this case, the Great Flood may be man-made.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about, the Great Flood.
Yeah.
Modern Great Flood, man-made.
Makes sense to me.
I mean, like I said to you earlier, I just signed up with the company.
Congratulations.
No, now you got me shit scared. What do they want my DNA for? Why me? Who else have they signed up with?
They asked for your DNA? Wait, what is this deal, Cam Bam? You don't have to tell us. You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me.
No, for sure, I'll tell you. I won't tell you the company because they're, I don't know, they seem nice. So what they do is they take your DNA, so like a mouth swab, and they send it in for, they have specific markers. So you choose your kit. I obviously chose the skin analysis kit to see what my skin is deficient of and what history I have in my family of certain skin conditions, whether it be psoriasis or cancer or whatever. So then I send it in, and it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get a full report back. And there's about 20 markers that they test for, and then they send the report to you, and then you can analyze what your body is, what your skin needs, what its history is, and what you can do about it. And in that way, it's kind of skincare for the future. So instead of going on the generalization of what people are telling you to buy as an influencer, oh, this works and this works, it actually gets personal to your specific DNA.
Okay.
And that's scary.
All right, that's fine. I mean, this is fine. This is fine. I'll go leather faced wrinkly before I decide to do that. But again, like my family is all doing this shit anyway. They're all sending their, so it doesn't even matter. They've got mine as a result of my sister sent her DNA, and like, God damn it, come on, sis, why? Because she wants to say, "Oh look, we're only 33% monkey." Like, yeah, no shit. Because you sent your shit into the DNA people.
Oh no, my DNA matches a banana.
Yeah, shit. Exactly. Hey, so skincare tips from Michael Strange. Mush up the banana, mix it with some avocado, smear that shit all over your face, and be sad you didn't put it on toast instead. There you go. There's the skincare tips from Michael Strange. All right. What else you got, Tam Bam?
Then Jennifer, one more thing. Jennifer was talking about the intent you put behind of what you do and what the world is doing, right? So I want to tell you about a story about my husband. He's going to kill me.
All right.
So he had this wart that okay, you need to understand, my husband is like super like OCD clean, okay? This man, I just don't know what it is. It's just brilliant. And so he had this wart and it just all of a sudden came like by his thigh, and he was so angry because he's this OCD clean person, and he was so angry about it. He put so much hate and intent into that wart that over a few weeks it turned black and fell off. So
he did the hate ritual.
He did the hate ritual. I mean, I thought it was like magic. I just watched this thing turn black and fall off. I said, well, if you can do that, imagine what you can do in business.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Hey, start conjuring money out of the portal. What the fuck is this? You're holding back.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Like, fuck the wall.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. That's pretty wild. Yeah. Hey, manifestation, intention. It's a thing. You know, I'm not sure I believe in magic, but I believe in momentum. And once you start rolling, momentum is a thing, isn't it? And so I don't know. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to believe.
I mean, if he can do that, I can grow a third boob.
Yeah. Okay. If you can do that, we want the exclusive on Troubled Minds. Okay.
Imagine that shit.
Wait, on the back.
The third boob would be cool.
on the back for dancing, right? That's the joke.
In the front and back.
That's the joke from Married with Children. Al Bundy used to make that joke. Anyway, all right. If you do that, Tam Bam, we want the exclusive. Do a video catalog of the journey. All right.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You're the best. Appreciate it very much, Tam Bam in South Africa. She is a bona fide influencer on skincare products and other things. Check it out. Links in the description. Scroll down.
11,000.
I was about to say, how many TikTok followers? 11,000.
11,200, yeah.
There you go, 11,000. Go give Tam Bam a follow on TikTok, Instagram, and all the other places Tam Bam can be found. Links are in the description down below. Thank you, Tam Bam, for waking up early for us, and thanks for sharing your ideas and yourself with us. I appreciate it very much.
Sure. No, thank you.
Hey,
great callers.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine. All right, let's do it. Let's go to Jay in New York. Let's get your final thought and let's get an outro. Let's get GTFO, my friend.
Yeah. God love Tam. That's all I can possibly say about all the stuff that she brought up. Was just God love Tam. And I'll give you the outro, Mike. It's after hours and all. You know.
Okay. Final thought on tonight, to manifestation or anything else, and then we'll cut to the music and the J-tro.
Well, I mean, I just look at it. You know, they're closing schools are getting closed, and we're doing all these things, and we're paying more. It's just I don't understand it. I don't want to digress, Mike. Really, I mean that's something for off the air.
Okay,
chat.
All right, we'll do it in the after chat. By the way, sorry guys for the after chat. I went and ate right after, and I passed out on the couch, and that's why you missed me. But I'll be there tonight. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's play the outro music and roll it. I'm gonna smash the button and give you the music, Jay. Here it goes. As we finish, right, it goes exactly like this. This is my good friend Jay in New York, and he coined the term the J-tro, which means the J outro on Troubled Minds. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, androids, reptilians, everywhere in between, I present to you my good friend Jay in New York.
Thanks, Mike. At the end of life, what really matters is not that what we bought, but what we built. Not what we got, but what we shared. Not competence, but our character. And not our success, but our significance. Live a life that matters. And I have no idea where that came from. It's one of those little things that just pop into the day.
Right on. Written by Anonymous. We'll take that. Great stuff as always, Jay. The J-Tro, the world famous Troubled Minds J-Tro. Appreciate it, bro. This is the deal, guys, as we finish Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific. So the bad news is we're done. The good news is, God willing, we got tomorrow. So we'll see you tomorrow night. And the thing is this, if you want to help the show, there are a number of ways. Hey, look, I'm wearing a Troubled Minds t-shirt. Look how sexy this thing is. Oh my goodness, the black on black with the logo. Holy smackaroni. Troubledfans.com. You will not find me oiled up on a fuzzy couch. You will find Troubled Minds merch. There's a brand new hat up there. It's a patch hat. I'm about to get myself one. I'm about to send one to James too, if you're out there listening. And the thing is this, right? Hey, buy some stuff, support the show. Not only can you spend a little money and support the show, you get some cool swag to go with it. That's one way to support the show. Another, of course, is Patreon. Rockfin, you can sub up on Twitch. Rockfin, Patreon, Twitch in that order if you care, because that's who takes the particular cuts anyway. And then the other way, if you don't want to spend money and you do like the show, that's cool. I get it. Or don't have money to spend, even better. Just spread the word. Spread the word. Old-fashioned word of mouth can beat the algorithm any day. And last thing, listen to the podcast feed. If you want to help the show, there's 430 some episodes on there. I'm pretty sure 436 to be exact. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who's heard all of those episodes because I've been there. I was there for every damn one of them, and maybe you weren't. So go check out an old episode. There's gold on them our hills and lots of things you probably didn't know. So go check that stuff out. And there you go. Easy as that. That would be Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It's completely free. All right, let's get the hell out of here. As it ends, it goes exactly like this. Anybody want to do it? Anybody want to do it?
Be sure, be strong, be true.
Thank you, Tam Bam. And thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night. All right, we got 30 seconds of Let It Rip, ladies and
Wet chihuahuas unite.
Let it roll. Let it roll. So,
Mexican pizza.
Mexican pizza. As you guys know, many of us hang out on the Discord after the shows most times. So if you haven't joined the Discord, come meet all these amazing people. They are more amazing off of the show because I cut them off and, all the rest of the stuff. Come say hi. Troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link. Come meet these amazing people. Thank you, everybody, tonight for being part of this. 3, 2, 1. Stream is over.